Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Here's the Webster Report with Paul the Gasman Webster.
Not this week. Not muted this week. Not being a knobhead. I've got enough technical issues going on here. Alex had his own technical issues, but we're here again for another Webster Report on the 6th of October 2024. And it's not like we haven't got things to talk about. A lot of messages and a lot of correspondence this week. A lot of it coming from North Carolina. We're seeing the devastation that's happened over there with the hurricane, that they're even expecting another one now. We're going to get remnants apparently of a hurricane. I've 52 years. I don't remember too many hurricanes. It got a bit windy. Put my big coat on and things like that, but I don't know where all this kind of stuff is coming from. Who knows? But when you're talking about this kind of stuff, this devastation in areas that, Ashfield itself in Carolina, it was flooded 100 years ago when two tropical storms merged over the Blue Ridge Mountains and came together. So it's not that they've never had floods like this. It's just it's not the norm thing. Obviously things do happen. But as soon as you start hearing a narration about there's areas around Ashfield that are littered with lithium, and they've already got lithium mines there, and they wanted to expand them, but the people weren't really up for it. They're quite against it. Now, if those reports are true, then there's not going to be people there to protest about this lithium anymore. And then we start to link that with what happened with Hawaii, where we saw these fires that burnt all the locals' properties and businesses down, yet millionaires and billionaires' properties didn't even get a wisp of smoke blow through the window. So we've got to start asking real questions and stop taking the BBC mouthpiece and all these other mainstream media mouthpieces that don't tell us anything. You can't keep pointing fingers and going, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a nutter. I'm a pattern recognizer. I recognise patterns. The first one, that's strange. Second one, that's not normal. On the third one, you start to see a pattern. Now, I don't know if we do have a guy who wants to come on tonight, if he can make it, and he wants to talk about the fires that happened in Portugal, where he lives, and he's got a story to tell about them. And again, all these things start to link up. We see other things that are happening, not just in our country. We've got all the usual stuff going on about immigration, about jobs, about them even saying that they're going to start charging you now because Labour have got in for 4 years. Those under-review climate changes now are wanting to be put forward, where they want to charge you £410 before you've even turned your car on. And then they want to charge you per mile. Now, these are going out through the mainstream media reports, and they're testing you. Are you going to say no? Or are you going to protest? Because if you protest, you're going to end up paying it. You've got to say no. It's how we're going to do it. They know we can't organise. They know we can't come together, but somehow we've got to break that norm and talk to each other, have a really good conversation. We're not going to agree on everything, but surely we can agree on some things. When you look at Northern Ireland and you see Catholics and Protestants coming together because there's too many immigrants coming in, they've solved the crisis between the Catholics and Protestants just by bringing these people in, because they understand it, that there's something other. There's something other than this. It's always been used against us. The religions are used against us. That's why any religion that you want to follow, if you don't know what their doctrine and what their mouthpieces are actually saying, and does it square up to what it is that you think you're following. I can't find a church to go in because they don't preach what's in the Bible. Not one church I've been to as yet. I can't find that church that preaches that Bible. So you've got a religion or a churchianity, and then you've got all the other religions and people who can raise their own vibrations and become little g gods and all that stuff. We know we've got all this expansion, but if we don't start to talk about it, then we all drift off in all these individual groups or individuals. And that's what this is about. It's about keeping us apart and not looking in on who's doing this to us. We've had 2 world wars and a Tavistock Institute and an education system and then loads of jibby jabs. What are we going to do? Are we going to be humble enough to go, maybe we've been taught the wrong things about life. Maybe we should ask questions about who we are, where we are, and what we're doing here. I mean, serious questions, because if working hard and paying your bills, which everybody knows and everybody does, is wrong, if I'm a creditor in a debt-based economy, which I am, then what else have they lied to us about? So we've got to have these conversations. With no further ado, how are we doing, sir?
Yeah, all right, mate. I mean, obviously you covered a lot of territory there, and I was thinking,
Trying to spread it out a little bit.
yeah. Well, I look at these weather modification patents. I mean, I think it's since the 1950s that they've been playing around with this stuff, and obviously that's given them over 70 years to perfect the technology, being able to change the direction of hurricanes. I mean, it's pretty much clear now that what they can do is artificially manufacture the narrative of climate change by making the weather a weapon. So obviously we know that the people with effective power to do these things, which isn't us, have got control over the weather. Now, without diving quickly into this, because there's a lot of detail, but of course a certain messianic figure walked on the Sea of Galilee or Tiberias and scared his disciples, and there was a big furore, and there was the wind and the waves, and he calmed them. The reason I say that is because we normally don't expect that natural entities have got the power to control the weather. So the weather is a natural system that's a part of our ecosystem, which should just take care of itself. And despite the claims that we are doing something terrible by driving cars that is leading to this becoming, deranged, the only people who are deranging this system is the oligarchs and elites. So basically, to me, if originally the creator was sovereign over the elements, and obviously then it's very significant, the disciples said, who then is this that he commands even the sea and the waves? So the basic idea is God has authority over the weather, and we are not supposed to tinker with it. And it's not even us. It's not being you, Paul, here on our keyboard saying, I fancy a bit of sunshine tomorrow. We're going to have a barbecue. No, it's not even something as innocent as that. It's malevolence. So I would say it's satanic, because it's the same with AI, the attempt to bring about an intelligence or a consciousness, but us as creators of it. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on where the natural order of things has been subverted, and humans have got to a point where their ability to manipulate things that were unthinkable even 6 or 7 decades ago is now, fully upon us. And that's a game changer. So regardless of the details and how they're doing it, in and of itself, it's a massive issue. Because if you look at the differentials between the powerful and the powerless, and it's the same with the wealthy and the poor, they're getting bigger and bigger all the time. So we're getting less and less power while we watch on, spectate basically, on these things that they're doing. And they don't even bother now. They just railroad through, they drive through whatever they want. They're not even bothered about the democratic institutions that would normally hold these things back. The gloves are off. Oh, we feel like doing this today, so we're going to do this. They don't even disguise it. So it is a challenging time, mate, for sure.
Well, you mentioned how long they'd been doing this weather manipulation for. Project Cumulus was a directive from the RAF where they seeded over, let me just get the name of the town right, Lynmouth, which is, I think it's down near Devon or somewhere like that, Lynmouth. But they had an absolute total devastation of a flood that they never normally had. And it was blamed on the RAF. It didn't come out until it was declassified. But if the fact they were doing it then, Alex, why wouldn't they do it now? You know, it's like with the new energy bill. In the legislation, police are being given legislative powers to red key doors for houses that you say you don't want a smart meter on. But they're not using it. Well, why is it in the legislation? It's the same as why have we got this technology? And I posted during the week hundreds of patents for all different types of stuff they're doing, from ridding us of fog, to disperse rain, to make rain. All the patents are there. And yet, when you see these streams going over, people go, oh, people going on holiday. It's very strange to me because it's so different to me when I was a kid. Because if you saw a contrail, it disappeared. It didn't hang about and spread out and then cause this opaque kind of blue-white sky. It wasn't there. And then we've seen all these weather changes, and it's down to climate change that always happens. You know, the flood I spoke about 100 years ago, the CO2 levels weren't where they are now, so what are we blaming here? It happened then, it's happening now. Doesn't it just happen? Is this not just what a biosphere of life works? It's all about balance. As soon as we start tinkering with it, we're going to upset that balance. If that is divinely programmed to work on a meticulous level, that's just another level of what they're trying to do. It's not just the DNA, the genome, the God particle that they want to abuse. They want to abuse everything that's related to God and turn that God world into the upside down world, the prince of the air. You know, he's not a king, he's only a prince of the air.
Yes. Well, I mean, you know, like last week I was saying some things about claims, and in a sense I was talking about religious claims. Anyone making a claim, and we can all do it. And the point is, we can't validate a claim just because we've made it.
Yeah.
The problem now is, if you remember what David Icke said, not that I'm a great, proponent of Icke. I don't dislike him, I don't like him. I'm pretty neutral about most of these figures, but he talks about problem, reaction, solution, and then he actually develops it at one point to no problem, reaction, solution. In other words, you just need to postulate a problem that doesn't even exist. Because nobody even has to bother verifying that what you're saying is correct. They know there's no accountability. So you can say, it's claim, reaction, solution. It's not even a problem. I'll just make a claim. This is what's happening. And then, so here's a reaction that we've got to that, that you're going to have, because it's a really bold claim. And then we'll provide the solution. So in other words, they know now, they've established, we just make a claim and then do whatever we need to follow through on the claim. So this is very worrying, because in the past, people used to have to do the due diligence. So you'll say to people, Paul, do your diligence, do your research. And that's for people who already believe in the truth. But nobody seems to think on an everyday level these days that they should do the diligence. I've seen so many people right across the board, right, because there's a trend, because a bunch of people are saying something, because a person with a name or a bit of authority. Like, for example, there's this guy, Archaics, right? And everyone goes on about him. And he's done all this research and so on and so forth. And he has this radical take on the Bible and Christian religion and so on. And I'm not saying he's not researched, but because he's Archaics, I hear all the time about all these people who subscribe to Archaics, his channel. And then all they do, they just repeat what Archaics says because Archaics said it. Yeah. And you just think, Right. So is that what we've come to? We're all looking for some expert who's got some take that sounds cool, and because the person's even done some research, it's automatically correct. It's like, well, it isn't, and I think that's what makes it very difficult these days. People can right across the board, and so if say you're on YouTube, which we are now, if you get a following, and don't forget, cult leaders used to be like this. They have a bit of charisma. They've got a good spiel. They're good salespeople, basically. Sell the idea, and then basically, that's it. You're away. If you have a following, and they parrot everything that you say straight away, then what can you do?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. In one of the response groups over the weekend, they've had to go out today. It's not been. I don't think it's the result they wanted, but it's an ongoing fight. It's not a loss either. But the group has already started to experiencing bickering, and people are now splintering off and either thinking of leaving the group or they've left the group and things like that. And it's because this establishment knows that they can just keep doing what they're doing because we can't stay together because of that bickering. We can't organise. We just don't seem to be able to do it. And it's because nobody really knows what's going on. We're all finding little bits of the puzzle, and we can't bring the puzzle pieces together and sit down without ego and start to sort it out. It's sad. It's sad because everybody knows there's something wrong, but everybody thinks that now, because it's starting to affect more and more people, they want to follow somebody like what you were saying. They don't want to do due diligence. They want somebody who knows what they're talking about to just go and do it. It's not that easy. If it was, Alex, everything would be sorted because there's so many people that have gone into these courts over the last 10, 15 years with remedies, with the right kind of paperwork, and they're just obliterated. They're ignored. They're just like, and what? We don't care. We don't care. We're doing this. Who are you going to tell? Go and tell the police. Who are you going to tell? They're stealing everything from you. Who are you going to report it to? Who cares? Nobody. So then you all come together and they all start arguing and falling out with each other. And in the end, what does that leave you with? Pitchforks and torches. Well, that's what they want. They're prepared for people starting to get uppity about things. The prison service already have released so many prisoners on error, apparently, but they're going to replace them with people who put out naughty tweets. People have got to, somehow we've got to come together, and if we can't at least start talking, how do it?
Who is this guy you told me about? The Muslim guy who's quite prominent. You sent me a video the other day. I had a quick look at it. Who's talking basically? It's the Kalergi man, isn't it? It's Kalergi, basically. That and clearly, he's stating openly that the idea is to get to critical mass of Muslims in the country, and then when they have, basically exploiting the liberal freedoms of the West, they will then use the political power that they get and their representatives to obviously impose their culture upon us. And he's stating this openly. I mean, everyone kind of knew. And people who've spoken informally to people who know Muslims, and a lot of them say it informally. I'm not saying all of them believe it, but a lot of them do. So this is the thing that
if you were saying what he was saying and saying that people should rise up about it, that is incitement. Yet why is that? Why is nothing being done to him? Why is he not being taken to task? If it was me or you, we'd be going to knock on the door to see how we're thinking. We just thought we'd check on you to see how you're thinking. You know what I mean? It's getting to the point where I don't know, Alex. I don't know what the answer is, because if you like to think, you can't miss this stuff. It's only if you choose not to think or ignore it, because ignorance can always be cured. I'm ignorant of what's behind the camera for you, mate. I don't know what that room looks like where you're sat. So I'm ignorant of that. You could cure that by turning the camera around and going, there's the rest of the room, Webby. And I'm like, oh, there you go. I'm not ignorant to that anymore. When you're given information, though, and you just dismiss it without even reading it or taking it on board or looking whether to see even checks and balances with your information, then I think you're doing yourself an injustice, and I think you're doing all your family an injustice, because if your family have been taught a certain way to act and it's wrong, is it not your job to say, hey, we shouldn't do this? You know, when you see that little toddler running to the coal fire to stick their hands in it, you tend to stop them, don't you, unless you're a psychopath or something like that. So you tend to stop them. Well, what if you're not meant to pay your bills in a debt-based economy as a creditor? What should we do then? Oh, you're meant to set them off. Well, should we not talk about doing that? That was where I was at. I didn't need to go and argue with anybody, Alex. It was there. Just get this gyro, sign it. You've given it me, I'll sign it, date it, give it you back. That's it, we're done. And we could all balance the books, we could all thrive, but the system is bent, and the system is teaching people to do something, and the mass majority is still wanting to defend this system the way it's being run. I've always said there's nothing wrong with the system. It could function perfectly well. If the right people were in it, we could change everything, mate. But this is what the problem is, and it's, what do we do now? You know, I mean, I can't. I've lost count of the amount of people that I'm seeing suddenly died every week, Alex, in various forms, be it sports, be it on holiday, be it on an aeroplane, be it here. They're suddenly dropping dead, and it's baffling. Nobody knows where it's coming from. I just wish we knew. I wish we knew what's happening. Well,
The point, yeah, but
when we
Paul,
get to next year, how many people are going to be bloody left to say anything? And I keep shouting, Martin Niemöller, they're doing it again.
but the point is they're relying with mission creep. Think how many people had the vaccine, right, who wouldn't have had the vaccine, except for the fact that it enabled them to continue to go on holiday. So the issue is, most people will only act when it's massively impacting their life in a significant way. So the issue then is, if you look at what's happening in Oxford now with 15-minute cities, you know, if you're not in Oxford, you're not too bothered, are you? Well, you should be, because they've now got the paperwork out. You've got to sign up for your permit. You can leave Oxford 100 times a year. Out of 365 days, you can leave 100. And on the other 265, you're not allowed to leave without sanction. Well, that's an open prison. It doesn't matter how you dress it up. If the people of Oxford, are okay to voluntarily go, because here's the problem. They will send out those permits for people to sign, the citizens of Oxford. And the point at which it must stop is, screw you. I'm not applying for any permit because I don't need one. Because to travel on the roads is free. I pay my road tax. I'll never pay you a penny ever. Get used to it. But every idiot who gets this paperwork through, applies for a permit, they've said, I'm okay with it. So, you know, the problem that we've got here is that's now coming. It's in Oxford. They're bringing out clean air zones in, you know, several pilot places to introduce people piecemeal. And they do little bits to get people used to it. It's the same, you know, they'll do it right across the board with the clean air zones. Andy Burnham is going to do it in Manchester if he can. And if people agree to this, and you kind of think they won't, but the problem is people are stupid. And if they feel that by ducking, diving and weaving, or just do this, just do that, make the problem go away, they're not looking at the bigger picture. And this is how they're doing it. They're micromanaging it, mission creep over time, getting enough people to buy in so that it's implied acceptance, then roll it out for everyone. So again, if it's affecting you, that's the point at which you've really got to put your foot down. You've got to. You can't say, I'm not going to fight this battle. But there's certain battles we can't fight. We can't go and find this Muslim guy who's saying this and make a citizen's arrest. So that's Keir Starmer's job. That's the powers that be, and they're not doing that job. So they're going to let him keep doing it. So we have to do what we can do, which is resist everything in our power to resist.
Well, it's where we get the two-tier policing, though, again, isn't it? We see the police helping bailiffs in a civil matter. We see the police now ignoring things like an incitement to riot. I mean, I forget what was the cleric's name with the hook? Was it Hamza? The amount of times he was
Abu
calling
Hamza, yeah.
Abu Hamza, the amount of times he was calling for death and destruction and genocide. He was the one that said that they would come into this country and breed us out. So if you want to know what mass immigration without any control is look like, ask the red squirrels of this country. There aren't any. They're all gone. So I really don't care, Alex, where you're from, what colour you are, what religion you are, as long as you're not a knobhead and you come in the right way. Or if you're born here, just don't be a knobhead. But then we've got to get down to the nitty-gritties. That fellow we were talking about, hijab, he's the one that is going round and saying that Christianity is this, it's no logic in it. And I've heard all these arguments, and there's nothing in them. We can't look at anything from their book to my book, because if their book says this book confirms the previous scriptures, which is the Torah and the Gospel, so the Quran confirms them. So if it confirms them, my Bible is nothing to do with the Quran, because they all worship a father, which Allah is not in any form. So there's no point in keep arguing with them. If they can't see it, and I don't know what they need to be able to have those pulled from their eyes, because like I said, we know a really good friend of ours is a Muslim, 40 years, and last time I spoke to him properly, he was on chapter 2 of the Quran. He's never read it, but 40 odd years he's been a really full practicing good Muslim. So what happens there? Because he was also taught to work hard and pay his bills, but he knows that's not true, and his mum and dad taught him that. So my question would have to be, if it was me in that position, if I was thinking, and I know this guy's an analytical thinker just like you and me, you've got to start asking questions. And when you start asking questions, that's going to cause issues. I feel so blessed that I never got a dogma growing up, Alex. It wasn't, I've told the story many times. When I got married, I was marrying a Catholic girl, non-practicing Catholic family. I went to a Church of England school, but my mum and dad both grew up Methodist. My wife's father wouldn't go to a Church of England church, and my mum wouldn't go to a Catholic church, but they both agreed on Methodist. So for me, religion was a nothing thing, but I never got into the nitty-gritty, because once I got in my 20s, it was birds, booze and football and whatever it was I wanted to do, and then made a few bad decisions and ended up where I'm at. It's, that's life. But when I look back and I analyse what I did and where I went wrong and why I did it, it gives you a picture, and you see patterns, and you understand that if you're humble enough, from 16 to 35, 40, I went on neutral. I wasn't at the wheel, somebody else was driving it, if you like, because I didn't know what was going on in the world. I didn't care. I weren't bothered about politics. But now all of a sudden you see what all this really is. And you can't just sit and do nothing, but as you said, you can't go and do everything for everybody else. I mean, it would be great if, say, somebody got to this massive platform, broadcast to every man and woman in the world, and every word was heard and everybody changed. That would be brilliant. But we know that's not the society that we're in. We've got to see where we're at and see who's going to fall by the wayside and who's going to stand up and walk this path, because this is not going to be an easy path. I mean, again, today, everything's open. Football's been on. Nothing's wrong, Alex. Nothing's going on yet. There's things far away going on, but there's nothing going on in here. We might have put our big coats on next week, but that's about it. But, we hear about this a lot, Alex, that something can happen, bang, like that. The collapse of the economy, everything. Everybody doesn't care about that. So how do you even think about saying, well, do you know what? If Jesus Christ is the only Saviour and he is coming back, when he comes back, it might be too late. How about getting yourself right with him? Nobody cares about that either. And, it's a bit like Paul Revere. If he'd have stopped at the first house trying to convince people that the English were coming, the English might have won it. But he didn't. Well, if you ignored him, he just carried on and went on to the next. I think that's all we can do is go about, show the truth of this world, and then compare it to what evil is running this world. Because everybody knows about energies. Everybody knows about energies. They all, whether they believe in God or not, they all know about energies, and they all believe in evil energies and dark energies. There's got to be the opposite. So where would you go and find out about that? Well, I went everywhere because I knew there's something after this life, but I didn't know what it was. And I knew religion wasn't it.
Yeah. Ultimately, in the context of your own life, I think I said before about like it's jigsaw puzzle pieces, isn't it? Everyone's like a complex jigsaw puzzle. Some people are only 500-piece jigsaw. Others are 10,000-piece jigsaw. But everyone is basically a jigsaw, and you take all these pieces because we have so many experiences from the minute we're born. That's what's so exciting about being a human being. Even identical twins, the same in every respect. We'll go and live different lives, marry potentially different people, go and live in different countries. So there's endless possibilities in the uniqueness of our lives, but there's endless like cul-de-sacs that you can come to, endless cliff edges you can jump off, endless challenges that could defeat you if you decided to be beaten down, like the trials of childhood, the things that you sometimes have to overcome against the odds. Many people under COVID, I had a builder who helped to build an extension, and his stepbrother killed himself a few months in, and their own mother had died from a heart-related complication after having a COVID jab at age 61. And they were starting to sense that something was wrong. Well, that guy could have made a decision. He could have made a decision even though he saw that everything was bleak. He could have made a decision not to kill himself, to talk to somebody. But he took the decision that he did. He felt there was no way forward. So we're all in that place every day, having to make really big existential decisions, especially if we get to the edge of despair. So
there's so many though, Alex, that are making that decision now, and I've never known it. I'm blessed to not know that many people that have taken their own lives, but this is now becoming more and more common. We've got to see there's a common denominator. Society is collapsing, and we're trying to just keep it going. We're trying to just keep. I don't know how to say it. We're just trying to keep the society going how it used to be, and it's nowhere near what it used to be. This is a whole new thing. We're going into a different thing that we've never been into before. In theory, they want us in a completely shut down system where they control us through social credit ratings, where you're digitally ID'd, you can't get a train ticket if you put a naughty tweet out or anything like that. You can't drive your own car. Everything's going to be within your 15-minute walk. If they get that, that's it. That's what they want. That's what they've written about. That's what all the smart cities and everything's about. People are starting to switch on to that since the lockdowns, but they don't know what to do about it. And these people don't care at the minute because people went out in droves and voted. Well, they've given them another 4 years legally to do what they want with the manifesto. How many voters actually read the Labour manifesto, Alex? How many of them? How many have read out the 10 planks of communism, and how much of communism's in place already? Cultural Marxism. Nobody cares about this stuff, yet we live it every day.
Well, I'll just take a couple of chats from the comments from the same person, Martin Redding. So first of all, he said, well, second of all, actually, after saying hello, he said, Brighton beat Spurs, I'm happy. But then within a few comments, he said, spiritual warfare is a real thing. St. Paul mentioned this. Now, that's a really good example, right? Because you have to carry on living. So you might be a football fan, you might attend some matches. It doesn't make it like wrong. It doesn't make it frivolous, because in a human life, you've still got to do stuff. You've still got to occupy your time. You know, monks go and live in monasteries, and nuns, and they pray, they give a life of total devotion to spiritual things. Most of us don't. Some take vows of celibacy in that respect. Others who are Christians in churches get married. So again, each person's unique, so many different potential choices of lifestyle. You've got to find things to structure your day. But then, as Martin says, you can talk about the football there and being happy that Spurs lost to Brighton. But that spiritual warfare is a real thing. So St. Paul mentioned it. So the question is for all of us, how do we live in a world where we celebrate Brighton beating Spurs, and that's actually legitimate and okay, gives meaning to our life, as well as acknowledging that on a some more significant level perhaps, but less visible immediately, say, to the senses, that there's a high level spiritual warfare taking place that's translated into the earthly arena. So we've got to find balance in all of this. You know, being serious people who understand how grave the situation is in the world, while still continuing to try to live an everyday life, relate to our families, do the normal things. So it's very, very difficult for us to get that balance right.
Indeed. It does become difficult when you walk outside every day, though, and you see people that you hear conversations, and you hear the conversations that they know there's something wrong, but they still don't go and look. They still don't want to read about it. My own family, they don't watch the news. They don't watch television, which is not really a bad thing, but they don't know what's going on outside their own world apart from what they get told and snippets and stuff like that. I'm not saying that they're ignorant of everything, but if if it's doom and gloom, they're not interested because life's bad enough, life's hard enough. That's what I always hear. And I know, last 10, 15 years have not been the best for me, Alex, but I couldn't change it. I wouldn't want to change it with what I understand now. And do you know what? What I realised over the past week or so, and on Friday when we had the prayer group, which was such a, it was quite a powerful conversation group. That it was quite amazing to feel all these dots that have been joined from this world, and to see this world for what it is. And I can't give it to people, Alex. I can't just go, there you go, there it is. I can't. I can feel it, I can know it, but I can't articulate it well enough because there's so many people that don't want to hear it. Maybe it is the eyes that see and the ears that hear, but there's so many people that don't want to see how bad it is, because when you realise how bad it is, there's no way out of it. You're not taking yourself out of this. You're not making this world any better. This world is prophesied to go in a certain direction from the beginning. So I would always say, well, what have you not done due diligence on? We can talk about bills of exchange and for all eternity. We can sit around a nice big fire in hell and say, hey, do you remember them bills that we were taught to pay? What knobheads we were. But that's not how it's going to be. Because if you've got the Pope saying every road leads to God, and you've got the Bible actually saying that's not true, and every time you hear somebody say, I'm a Christian, people say, are you Catholic or are you Protestant? Well, if you read their doctrines now, and what they're promoting, they don't follow what it says in the Bible. So is that Christian? I don't know. For me, when I call myself Christian, it's because I read what Jesus talks about, which I hadn't done before. So more fool me for not reading it. I see the times and the seasons that have changed. I see the troubles that are coming, and there would be no hope in this world the scriptures even said there would be no hope unless it was cut short. But because this time's going to be cut short, it's preparing now. So when you start to see these things happen and things getting worse, I mean, I've known some really hardcore atheists in my time, Alex. And do you know what the first thing they say when everything's gone from them, when when they've lost stuff and they're upset? The first thing they do is call out to God. Even these atheists call out to God. Mm. So somewhere in our DNA, there's an ancient call, an ancient trumpet that comes through our DNA. And the only thing you have to do, this is the silly thing, right? Because the only thing that you're told to do is to go and read the word and ask. Ask questions about it. What does the scripture say, Alex? You know him better than me, but come and reason with me. Don't just take these words for it. Come and reason with me here. Come. Now, you don't get that in any other religion. It's do as you're told. So there again is another reason why it was intellectually it stood out as different. It's just I couldn't just believe. I couldn't just believe.
Did I? Isaiah.
You go in. Oh, brilliant. Do you know what? He does this to me every week. Leaves me on my own. I don't know. Oh, well, I've had a big rant there. I needed a rest so he could come back with some stuff. Where shall we go? Let's speak to some people in the chat. I always found that people with a mortgage, etc., always thought themselves better and above people or snobs when they're actually more indoctrinated than the rest. Coming from a family, my family, they always had a mortgage, but they were working class. Me, my dad who had the mortgage didn't see himself as any better than his sister, my auntie. It was a different. I don't know. I get what you're saying though, Dorian. It's been a change in social status. I mean, I always thought that if you didn't come off a council estate, you're always you should tend to be better and you shouldn't go to jail. But you're using a 7-year-old's mindset to think like that. As you get older, you realise it doesn't matter about the walk of life. But the snobbery is you're right. But the snobbery what I saw was when you're told that you've got to work hard and pay these bills, and then when you tell them that you're not meant to do that. My best mate, his mum turned around and looked him in the face and said, "I've never been so disappointed that you don't pay your bills." She didn't get it, and that's a travesty because these people have done all their work, they've run businesses, and they've had everything stolen. It's a travesty. You're back. Are you back?
Yeah, it started lagging. Yeah,
You're lagging still, mate.
You're still lagging. It seems like it's back.
You're still lagging.
Is it like? When did that start?
As soon as you stopped, went off.
Okay.
Well, you can't hear me talking, and your lips are out of sync, my end. Can everybody hear Alex okay? Is he coming through okay? Can anybody give me a thumbs up in the chat room?
Yeah, we don't. Is it my connection? I don't really know whose connection it is.
It can't be mine. It can't be mine, mate. I'm not hotspotting, I'm plumbed in.
I swapped over. I swapped over from hotspotting to the other one when it booted me off.
Well, thanks for that. You said you were going to stay hotspotting. You're doing this to me every week now, you know.
No, it was on the hotspot that it started lagging. That was the point.
Well, it seems to have caught back up here now. Good. So have you got anything, if you can remember, have you got anything to add to what I ranted about?
I didn't hear the last bit because I was off.
Well, I didn't. I'd finished at that point. I started to talk about what was going on in the chat room.
Well, I know we've got... we had somebody asking if it could be a guest earlier on. I'm just going to go at the beginning. back to the
Yeah,
start of
it's
the chat.
Mick Billington has asked. He said
Yeah,
he'll come on. He's a veteran.
he's the ex forces, yeah.
Yeah, he's a veteran. He wants to 22 years. He said.
Yeah, well, and I asked him a question about because he talked about coming on sometime. So I said, "Do you fancy it tonight?" And I know Owen's due to come on. So
Well,
yeah,
like I
well,
said,
I think
I'm happy to open it up
I think it's
after first hour. I want Owen was going to come on and tell us what's going on over in Portugal. So I'm happy for him to come on at some point, mate. I'll put it in the chat room. He wondered whether we had to download anything. It's not just click on a link. He's obviously got a YouTube channel because he's already connected, so he shouldn't have a problem coming on.
yeah. Well, I suppose we're kind of going backwards and forwards because we're trying to cover stuff that's micro level, relevant to individuals, and the large cosmic level. And I know people's theory about shills. I just don't buy most of it. I'm not interested in talk about shills. I find it tedious. But ultimately, if you think Farage, for example, is a shill, I'm not much bothered. He's basically what Reform are trying to do. Like I said last week, I think they're trying to get a focus on, locality, family. So family, locality, community, and nation. And I think we need some things that are going to unify us in that way. So, for example, a British cultural identity, quite apart from religion and spirituality, we need to reinstate a British cultural identity now. Sargon of Akkad, what's his name now? Carl Benjamin. He's very hot on that. And I remember in the old UKIP, when it was UKIP, I saw him once at a club in Little Lever, and he was talking about the vital importance of developing a national British identity that was strong. I think that's very important on a nation state level. But in terms of spirituality, I think you can't get away from the fact, as I was hinting at before, that personal faith is a choice. And you only make these choices based from a human perspective on your experiences. Like the 2 and 2 make 4 or not. Now, it's fashionable in theological circles to say that God calls people by his grace. In other words, we could just say as Christians, well, don't bother about those people who don't believe in Christianity and Jesus. They just think it's another fake organized religion, or it's one voice amongst many. You could go down that path. But ultimately, we make choices based on our experiences. And if you don't believe that God calls or that he damns people or he doesn't select these people, that's one way of looking at it, and it solves the problem simplistically. But anyone genuinely who's curious about their own life, their own experience, the state of the world, should have these same deep-seated questions. The only point is, where do we go for the answers?
Well, just let me interject. It throws away responsibility if we allow it to be that God is doing this, God is punishing us. If you're born into a shithole world, and somebody comes along who says, "I'm the only way out of here, follow me," and you decide that's not for me, whose fault is it that you're going where this world is going, which is to hell? That's the basics of it, Alex. You can't say, well, he's going to do that. God is punishing. God doesn't do this. It's a shithole world full of evil and good, and it's a mixed match. And we've got to see the evil and the good. It's got to be there because that's what we chose. That was the legal requisite for Satan. When Eve fell, she either convinced Adam or duped Adam or Adam voluntarily, it doesn't matter. When Adam partook, that was it. That was it for the bloodlines. They were all there. Satan knew he had legal hold. And it wasn't until the cross that that legal hold could be changed. And it could only be changed if he wasn't just an ordinary fella like me and you. If he'd have had a human dad and a human mum, he would have been an ordinary fella who might have been a prophet like the others. but he wasn't. He was different. He had to be different because if he wasn't Alex, there's no way out of this. And the alternative to it is, whereas we're being told that all roads lead to heaven. Well, if I'm wrong and you're wrong, Alex, and everybody else is right, we all end up in heaven, and everybody laughs at us for thinking there was only one way. But
got a comment here, Paul, from Dottie Gran. I don't know if Dottie's Dorothy. Dottie Gran. Is someone who's called Dorothy who's a grandmother? I don't know. What or who is God? For me, God is nature. Right.
That's a creation.
However, right, here's the point. A God of nature, there's no necessary moral code. So, for example, you go like Sigmund Freud. Yeah, well, it's part of a man's drive to have sex with as many women as possible because it's just part of his nature. And he should just go sleeping around, putting his seed everywhere. It's natural. It's part of the natural order, and therefore it's perfectly healthy. But we know it isn't, and we know that the consequences of people sleeping around, it doesn't lead to happiness. Most people who do this are looking for something that is not satisfying them in their life generally. So, and then they can become sex addicts or whatever, or they're always looking for the next thrill, the next escapist way of not looking inside their own life. So, a God of nature who's just a God of nature, there is an order in nature, but there's also an order in nature that says lions eat antelopes alive sometimes. So if we're going to go down that path...
Isn't it? Good and evil's then subjective.
Yeah, precisely. So for me, we have enough experience as human beings to see. And so many of us, and we can pretend we don't, we do things that are stupid. We self-sabotage. None of us is perfect, and none of us tends to be totally evil. Most of us are on a spectrum somewhere. Some of us are more conscientious than others. But the bottom line is, in and of ourselves, we're prone to making mistakes, messing things up all the time, and we're susceptible to temptations. We can easily be bribed by money. How many people, if somebody said, here's £1 million, right, and you never have to work again, but you have to go to this room every day, Monday to Friday for 10 years, sit there, do nothing for 8 hours, and we'll give you £1 million. It's totally unproductive.
Or you could go to Las Vegas with P. Diddy for $1 million.
Yeah, you could do, if you really want to supersize that. But if you want the boring option, we'll just give you £1 million for turning up at a building 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, do nothing. How many people? But you see, the point is, they'd do it, they'd take £1 million, and 10 years later, they'd be bored. They'd be hanging on, thinking, I signed up for this, but I suppose I got £1 million. But the point is, you can't cheat life. You can't violate the principles of life. God has a logic, and it's sewn into the fabric of reality. And if you transgress against that logic, like the logic of obey God in Eden, and if you don't, you'll surely die. Oh, Luke, we die. It seems to me that humans, no matter how pristine we try and be, mess up on a regular basis. Despite our best effort.
We have a propensity to do so.
There you go. Now, if somebody doesn't believe that's true, good luck to you. But I'd say you can learn that from experience. You don't even need the Bible to tell you that. But then when you go to the Bible and you read its account compared to other scriptures don't really seem to talk about this. They don't. The problem of the human heart, the problem of the human condition, the problem that humans have no humility. Look at King Nebuchadnezzar. He got arrogant. I'm all that. I'm superior. When humans get ideas above the station, things tend to go wrong. Simple as that.
Exactly. I mean, I've just brought up Mr. Diddy. We asked a question last week that Taylor missed, which was, did Diddy bum Bieber? Well, I've seen the article now where Russell Brand is being interviewed, and Russell Brand said that he was a very big influence, Mr. Diddy, and he enforced him to go onto a vacation with him to Las Vegas. So the question is, did Diddy bum Brand now? Who's he not bummed? What's going on? This is like so many people's idols that are at these freak-off parties, Alex. This is like Sodom and Gomorrah in Hollywood. And people are very blasé about it. I've told you about my friend who loves Tom Hanks. And I said, well, there's court paperwork in about him buying a 12-year-old girl as a sex slave. Oh, that's a load of rubbish. Tom Hanks is a lovely man. She's seen Forrest Gump loads of times. She's seen other films with Tom Hanks in. He's a good actor. But does that mean he doesn't, he's not a paedophile? We don't know this. We don't know anything. Keir Starmer stops Jimmy Savile's stuff coming out, and yet he doesn't stop anything else. Certainly doesn't stop incitement against everybody else other than
Starmer,
Muslims.
good point. Here he is, Starmer in 9 years elevated to this level after
Exactly. He's done his job.
Yeah, after his grooming by Savile, but even more, look at it, right? Barack and Michael Obama have to cover up because at this point you can't have a homosexual president, but homosexuality openly displayed in the most powerful country in the world. That seems to be, well, we better disguise that. So become Michelle, and then Macron as well, with his so-called older female partner, who people are pretty much convinced is transsexual. So if you look at it at the top level in governments, a lot of the women like Angela Merkel, they were childless. They didn't have kids. They were not very maternal. They didn't express the full humanity that most of us can relate to. Or then you'll get two gay guys, and then one of them has to, transition to a woman just to make it look legitimate. But it's openly paraded right across the board. You're talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. When you get those people in high places, their morals will enable them to be compromised. They'll sell out. Look at Tony Blair doing his genting as Anthony Charles Linton Blair, blowing all men in toilets just to show how far in the 80s he'd be prepared to bend over for power. So you can see that that's what happens right across the board, that corruption and immorality, and that cascades down from the top. There's no purity in politics. It's all conniving and manipulation.
Well, if we go back to World War II, there was brothels in London, Alex, where MPs were being caught out by Nazi spies in these brothels, photographs taken, all this kind of stuff. This is exactly what P. Diddy has been doing, allegedly. So it's Jeffrey Epstein. Nobody knows how he became a billionaire. He just attached himself to a billionaire, and this billionaire just gave him loads of money, and then loads of other billionaires did, and then loads of other billionaires loved going to his island on this aeroplane. It must have been a really nice flight, I suppose, mustn't it? Because it was very popular by a lot of people. We should be asking these questions. This isn't nothing new. I seen there was an interview with somebody called a woman called Jaguar Wright, who's spilling all the beans on this stuff, and she said the only difference between me talking about this now and Judy Garland when it happened to the likes of Judy Garland back in those years, 40s, 50s, 60s, the only difference is social media. It's people are learning about this. But it still doesn't seem to be doing anything, Alex. When you're watching your nan die through a plate glass window, you think that would wake people up. Because there's no way I'd do that to my nan. I saw an old girl saying to her son to come and hug her, and he's saying, I can't, and she's weeping in her hands. How can you do that? By thinking you're trying to save her? I don't get it, mate. The mentality was lost on me. That's when I knew that society was on a decline. And I don't know whether we've got enough to spike it back up, because it comes down to people. And it depends on...
It's depravity. Right, so let's say people reject religion. They reject God. They come up with all these reasons why. But then we need a different model to understand why humans are so depraved, and particularly people in positions of power. I mean, some people have alien theories. There's loads of people believe that we've been colonized by aliens. Look at what, Ike talks about, and so on and so forth. Reptiles, lizards. There's that many theories and stories to account for why people, the reptilian brain, therefore the predatory. It's not like that type of spiritual evil. It's just it's a part of their constitution as reptiles. There's all kinds of stories to account for it, but we've got to find something, some mythology, And if it's not a religious or a spiritual one, we've still got to account for the facts. It's all right getting rid of religion and saying it's all garbage, but how do we account for the human condition? How do we account for where we're at now? Why are we here? What patterns you said about being a pattern recognizer? What patterns are we recognizing? How does it all fit together? These jigsaw pieces, because they are there. It's all right poo-pooing stuff, but what answer are we going to give when we poo-poo stuff? That's what I want to know.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? When somebody says that that statement you've just made is stupid, and you say, well, why is it stupid? And the only comment you'll get back is because it is. There's no source, there's no reference. Then this is what I said about the Paul Revere thing. You've got to carry on. I'm not going to cast my pearls before you, mate, then, because you're refusing to be humble enough to understand that you don't know enough about this subject. And instead of just saying, oh, well, I don't know about that, you have to take the stance of an opinion that is false. But everybody's entitled to an opinion, Alex. When the opinion is not valid any longer, it doesn't matter whether you're entitled to it. You can say what you want, but where does it end? Why can't people be humble enough to go, I don't know enough about that to defend that? It's a bit like speaking to a lad who supports Hamilton Academicals. They're the best team in the world. They're obviously not. And if he can't go, well, I know, but I love them. And he says, yes, they are. And he wants to defend them to the point of fighting that they're the best team in the world. There's no humility. I can't even see that is pride. It's almost like it's a belligerent, blind following of something, which we do see in society now. We've got people who are following other people blindly because of some information that was good. There's a lot of people that are going to let you down, but they've got good information, Alex. That's why I always say take all the information. Don't just take bits of information, because that's where your opinion starts to fall to bits.
Yeah. But I must apologise to all Hamilton Academical fans who might be watching tonight, Paul, because you could have really thrown him a curve there, because somebody possibly they are the best team in the world. We may discover they could be in Champions League in a couple. Oh well, you got me. Well, I can insist.
When they've won the Champions League, I'll go, Hamilton Academicals are the best team in the world right now.
Yeah, it's a fair cop. It's a fair cop, Paul. Yeah. Well, I know Owen was saying before that he was.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for him. He's just checking his camera, and then I'll when he turns up in the green room, I'll add in.
So Darian's just said Jill Dando was about to expose the Royals and Jimmy and the rest.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at that. I think there's good. I think there's definitely good value in that call. There's certainly something not right. When people have tried to do something and they've been genuine, something has happened to them. It's like when you get 6 patents all taken out. One patent, 6 individuals all have this patent for a multi-trillion-pound microchip, and then five of the people who own the patent crash on an aeroplane that disappears. Nobody finds it, and the one patent owner that wasn't on that aeroplane now owns all of it, and that just happens to be a Rothschild. Nah, there's nothing to see here, is there, Al?
No. Well, with Jill Dando, you can do crime watch, can't you? You just can't watch too closely. So if you get too close to the bone, and they'll allow things to a degree, but once it gets too hot, they'll throw anyone under the bus. This is the strange logic of the system. Keir Starmer might get sacrificed at some point. Who knows?
Well, maybe he's paid his dues. Michael, just to say, Michael, I'll put the link in the group chat. in a bit when Owen's come on and, well, if Owen ends up coming on and doing his thing. But I'll put the link in the chat room soon for you, Michael. All right, pal. Yeah, just going back on the things that are going on in this country. When you try and bring people together to look at a bigger picture, they're always going to go from their own pictures first, aren't they? What's going on in their lives. But there's a lot of people that tend to be so trying to keep everything together, trying to keep everything in control. They tend not to look over the wall to see what's going on next door or what's going on over the road.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because that only changes, like when we said before, about when that knock on their door happens and they look to change
Right.
something. But then you've got others. Who are like, nosy neighbours who are going, hey, you know what they're doing over there? They shouldn't be doing that. And shut up, I don't want to know. But that
I'll tell you what, though,
I see that happening.
I've just noticed that Owen's on in about 10. Should we get Michael on for 10 or 15 now first?
I can do, mate, yeah.
We might as well.
Okay, Michael, click the link, mate. Click the link. What did Owen say? With you in 10. Not at 10, you balloon. Yeah. In 10 minutes.
No, in 10.
He said
right. No, we'll be right.
Well, you've even woke Monkey up now.
Bless her. See? She wants to get involved in the show.
No, she's not. Not interested, eh, darling? She's not bothered about what's going on in the world. As long as she's got a cat food and a pace, she's happy enough.
Well, that's just like most people, Paul.
Exactly. I mean, I think this week, well, this month leading into next month with the American elections as well, I think we're going to see some movement then. This is it's all postulating at the minute, isn't it? And puffing chests out. I mean, if anybody saw the conference by Netanyahu yesterday, my word, he can't. I'll tell you what, if you want a party balloons blowing up, just give them to him, mate. He's full of her. All he could do was blow it. Do you know what? You had a portion. There was loads of people who didn't even bother turning up for his speech. You could see, where they have in the conference tables, Alex, where they have like the plaque where it say England or Egypt, where people are from. There's all these empty spaces, and then just in this little quadrant over on the side, everything Netanyahu said, all you'd hear is a woo, woo, because they loved him. I mean, this is a guy who the American Congress were ordered to give him 3 standing ovations. Why? If you listen to what he said, right, I'm telling you, Alex, go and watch his conference, because the only thing that was missing was a Zeke Heil and a salute, because that's the propaganda that was coming out of his mouth. I couldn't differentiate it. It's just in colour and it's a different era now. Couldn't differentiate between them at all. I don't know if Michael's seen... Have you seen it, Michael? I can't send him a message. Can't send him a message, so you're going to have to fill in, mate. You're going to have to wind yourself up and fill some gap in here. Come on, Middle East, mate, that's where we're at. We've got Hezbollah been attacked. The leader, the Ayatollah, who's been there for 30-odd years, he's gone. The Iraqis are mourning him. The Iranians are mourning him. They've already set loads of rockets that Iron Dome seem to miss a few. What's going on? Israel have now gone into Lebanon. What's going on?
Hold on. We've got a response here. It's not Netanyahu. That Satanist is dead, according to Taylor. So I'll throw my Netanyahu mask away then.
Well, he's already got
No
one
need for
then,
any
hasn't he?
more. I reckon Taylor's got a collection of masks right at home. He's been buying them off eBay.
Mate, I don't know. I don't want to know what collection Taylor has at home.
I want Taylor to come on at some point next week with a Netanyahu mask on, but he's got to perfect his accent before then. He's got to be a credible Netanyahu double before we allow him on.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Oh,
Hello, sir. I couldn't see half your face, mate.
yeah. Hold on. Oh, it's the opposite way. There we go.
That's it.
Hold on.
Michael,
Yeah,
how are you doing,
that's
sir?
I'm not doing bad,
Michael.
man. How are you, man? I've been listening to you guys for a few weeks, and I've looked back at your videos, and I found them quite impressive.
Thank you
I
very
must
much.
admit.
Thank you, sir. So, you've got a story to tell us.
I could give you many, many stories. I can tell you.
You've got the floor, mate.
Well, I mean, I was going to answer questions a lot, but let's go over a few things that you've said about religion and God and things like that. I've never really been that religious, although I have been to church a few times. Let's say when just on military service, you know. But there was a time, well, there's many times that I've been in a trench at, you know, between 2 and 4 in the morning, freezing me boobies off and things like that.
Yeah.
And one time I was in the Gulf, and you know, stuff was going down, and then it got to, I was on stag at like 2 in the morning it was, and it was freezing cold. Believe it or believe it not, it gets blooming cold at night. It does. And I just got angry. I got angry. And I looked up at the sky, and it was a beautiful, clear sky. You know, I looked up the sky and I went, I was really angry, man. I got really angry with, let's just say, God. And I was like, you know, you better start showing me something, man. What the hell is all this crap about? I'm being shot at. I'm shooting. I don't know if I've hit anybody or anything. What is it about? I was so, I'd had enough, you know, I totally had enough. And nothing really happened at that time. I just found myself gazing at the stars. And then in the morning, I sort of woke up and I started to literally wake up, as what people call it. And the question came in my mind, like, why am I following these orders? I've been told to do this, do that, all this time. I'm 12 years into my service here. I'm a big yes sir, no sir. Give me them tapes. Let me go up the ranks. I want to get that, you know, RSM. That's what I want. But I started to realise that we've been lied to on a massive scale.
Yeah.
Anyway, I started to see things, patterns in the stars, because, you know, the next night I looked up at the stars and I went, well, why aren't you showing me nothing, man? You know, I was pretty angry at this point, like, you know, and
he wants you to get angry. He wants you to come and question.
Like an Old Testament prophet. Very much.
I did.
They were very much like that.
I did, and another question that came in my mind was, do the people really at home appreciate and know what we're doing? Because I'm telling you now, I love my country. I absolutely love. I wouldn't have joined the military and sacrifice and would sacrifice my life, and I would do it again tomorrow. I can tell you that now, because I love my country and I love my people, and I'll do anything for it. In defence, little did I know about the attacks and everything, but yeah. So, and I just like questioned everything. I questioned the lot of them, and it started to really get to me. And then I started to wake up, and then I started to research a few things. When I got back, you know, obviously I'd done a lot more time after that, another 12 years, which something happened and then made me disabled, then really, really made me wake up and start, you know, questioning everything and do it. And the history, we've been lied to. Everything has been a lie, the whole lot. That was my sort of calling point, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Then I went back to Northern Ireland. I'd done 4 tours of Northern Ireland. Armagh, Knocknow, we used to call it Knocknow but Knocknow. I had a break in the Maze. I'd done the Maze prison and Belfast, Lisbon, Belfast. And I was what you call chief chatter, pathfinder, if you like. So I'd be the one stopping the cars on the road and chatting to the people, name, address, where you're going to, where you're coming from. Those were the laws over there at that time. And all I got from there, I love the Irish people, don't get me wrong, but we were brainwashed into hating them, literally, absolutely, literally, to hate them. Well, I don't do that. I believe in love and kindness and things like that. But anyway, I was doing my job and they'd had enough. This is what I found, Protestants and Catholics. They'd had enough of it. And they certainly had enough of us being there, stopping them, questioning them, searching them, doing things like that, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's that's what I got from Ireland. And I feel sorry for the people, you know, I really do. But yeah, I also, there was a stage in Northern Ireland where I found something. It was a big hide, what we call a hide. And I had a lot of weapons in. And I don't know if I should be saying these things, but I was flown somewhere in Ireland to the SAS. And I had to brief them what I found, where it was, because what we do is we do what we call is an op clean. So, it was about, what time? It must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning. And there was this farmhouse on the hill looking over this place. And I seen these prominent points, and we do our 5 and 20 meters checks, you know. And it was there. I just seen there was this pile of rubble. I hopped over a fence, and there was this pile of rubble of bricks. And I picked up this brick. It looked odd. It just looked odd, you know. The only white brick in a red pile. So anyway, I picked up this brick. It's more like a breeze block, a little bit smaller. And there was this pipe in the ground. I thought, that's odd. So I got my torch out, I looked down there and I went, oh my God. Yeah, you can guess what was in there. So I quickly put the brick back, covered up the grass tracks, got back over the fence, went to my commander, and we reported it on as op clean. So yeah, then so I was with the SAS for a day, and you know, I respect them boys a hell of a lot, or anyone in the army I respect, serving their country. But anyway, we went to, we got flown in, speaking to them, and one of them sort of like took a liking to me and started telling me about MK Ultra. And the intelligence sort of side of things. And I sort of looked at him a bit weird, and he just said, look into it. So I got back to the camp, and obviously we didn't have the internet there, you know, didn't have internet back then. So I found it quite hard to research it. And it wasn't, so I just like brushed it off and went, nah, whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm not in that. So anyway, I got back. And I come out of the army, and then I really started to do my research and found out a lot of things. And I'm absolutely terrified and horrified of what has been going on. You know, like you say, the television. You know, law, land, air, and water. Land, air, and water. Yeah, and Admiralty law, Judas Campus. Going to court, you're not going to court, you're going to a church. Simple, it's a church. It's a church on a boat, if you know what I mean. And the birth certificate, but exactly what you guys have been saying, I know is absolute truth. You guys have spoke a lot of truths. There's a lot more that you can speak about, and maybe I can help out with that a little bit. But yeah, it's my way. I found my way with astrotheology.
All right.
I don't know
cool.
if you ever heard of that. You know,
Yeah.
every morning, every single morning is that's the It's another thing people say. Look, no, when people won't meet you, they say, "What's your birth sign?" And you know, mine's an Aquarius. I'm Aquarius. That was my birthing date when I came down the birth canal, when my mum's waters broke. That's why you're a product. That's why she goes in a delivery room, because she's delivering a product. That's why it's Admiralty law. That's why the birth certificate stands as a treasury bond, you know, but that's another story. I can go into that more. But yeah, you have two birthdays. You have the one where you first breathe air, but you also have a birthday 9 months before, when your mother and father, when the sperm met the egg. That is the light and the star of God. You. That's your true birthday. The day that charge, that connection is made. You were that one out of those millions and billions of sperm. You were the one chosen. Why? You see? There's a lot to it. There's a hell of a lot to it.
Indeed, mate. Like I say, we the people that know about the difference between with the Admiralty law, it's
Yeah.
we only ever use the words of commerce because people really get sucked into the, oh no, you're going on about a birth certificate again, and this trust fund, yeah. I've seen people go into courts and say it's part of the trust fund, it's this bank account, and the judges asked them for that number. So again, without being able to find every item and being able to deliver it as evidence, it wasn't it's an interesting aspect and it's a notable aspect.
Mm.
But what can we do? How can we prove this? What can we? How do we at least get a foothold? That's why when I got that bank gyro, I don't know if you've seen the bank gyro stuff that I did, but when I
Yes.
got that joint gyro, the bills of exchange, Michael, all it wanted was a signature and a date and returning. That was it. I didn't have to argue with anybody. I thought this has got to, this is what it says in their own books here. I thought this is
Yeah.
a surefire way of making an impact with it. But
That's right.
all I saw was chickens running around with their heads cut off, and then they drew a line round about 2017, and they just went, "We don't care anymore. Anybody who
Yeah.
apply, any companies applying for these warrants will give them, and they'll have to come to us, and we'll deal with it." So
That's right.
they took that aspect away from us, Michael. But I'm telling you, 10 years ago, we would have had them if the amount of people that are interested now, we'd have changed the world back 10 years ago with in the court system. But we've just not been able to get there yet, mate.
No.
Owen, welcome, sir. Long time no see. You're muted.
I'm not now. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all. Good to hear you. And just echoing what Michael was saying, all the work that you've been doing, I remember it's about what's over 10 years ago now, isn't it? When we were meeting at the Freedom Advocates in Bolton,
Yeah.
trying to get as much people interested with what's going on in the world. And as you say now, if we had the amount of people that are aware of what's going on back then when we were trying to tell people, God, we'd be winning. We'd be winning.
Yeah.
Every step of the way.
Yeah, we would have been. I mean, I remember I remember the first meeting I went to in the cattle market. The cattle market's demolished now. That's not even there.
Wow.
And I did a talk in that cattle market, and then we moved to the cotton tree, which
That's it.
I did a talk in the cotton tree, and that's not a pub anymore. So
What?
Exactly, they've shut the pub.
Wow.
And that was it was in the middle of a housing estate, but it had a nice open bar, and it also had a nice conference room with a bar. It was like an old Labour club. It was fitted exactly for it. But people weren't interested, Owen. That was
They
the
weren't, were
problem.
they?
I know that it was advertised as best as it could be back in the day. We put it around everywhere that we could, and the odd people turned up. And, like I said again, we're talking, that must have been 2013, 2014.
2013, yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, if people were picking that gyro back up then, everything would be different now. Everything would be different.
Absolutely. I mean, there were so many things going on, so many things that we could talk about. The other meetings we went to, all over the place, and talk to people about it, and exchange ideas, and that was great because you saw that other people doing it there, But it was kind of, even back then, that people had their meetings. It was their meetings. It was very rare that they would travel out unless it was a speaker and that particular speaker had a following. They wouldn't necessarily come to your place of gathering, would they?
No. Well, I tried my best, especially in my hometown. Couldn't get anybody interested. I think one meeting, apart from me and the two people that helped me put it on, we had 3 other people turn up, and that was a big turnout for us back then, because nobody was interested. Everybody could afford to pay the bills, and there was nothing really going on that much. So, that's how it went. But the fact was, it was people who did turn up and people who were interested in would say, "Let me know how you get on."
That's it, isn't it? I mean, look at my instance, which I'm not going to go into. We'll go into that another time. But when I challenged something and was successful about it, it was about 2 or 3 weeks, and people were asking, "How did you do it? How did you do it?" Rather than researching and finding it out for themselves, which is a really poor do, really, because that's what it's about. It's about learning it and going and experiencing it yourself. I think you mentioned something about it on one of your shows a couple of weeks ago, Webby, is that you talk and you talk and you talk about it. People go, yeah, it's fine, and leave it. Yeah. And then when the situation comes to their doorstep, it's all panic and everything else. It just takes that, sit down an hour, 2 hours. If you forget having a beer, just sit down, have a chat, and just listen, because that's with the distractions that we have, whether it be in the media or whatever it may be, pop music. You're getting distracted where things are there, as we say, in plain sight, and people just can't see it.
Well, what I saw, Owen, was there was people contacting me and saying, and posting it on the groups as well, that I had to go in and rectify that I've done this process and I've sent this gyro off and they've sent it me back. It doesn't work. And then when I've asked every single one of them which gyro have they sent, they always show me a bank gyro, which is a debt instrument which requires funds attached to it via a check or cash or whatever. But a joint gyro, and the only difference is the trans cash logo. If it's got trans cash, funds are attached. The person who's issued you that can't get access to them funds. You need to endorse it, give it them. They can get to it, and it's done. Simple. All it is about balancing books.
Mm-hmm. Double dipping. I'm sure that's where the term double dipping came from.
Yeah. But British Gas got done for double dipping in the 90s. Around about 94, 95. By 96, they were promoting direct debit, and they'd knock you a tenner off your bill. So that's how they got away with not sending the gyros out. But because I never... because British Gas always sent me a bill, even if it was direct debit, they still always sent me a paper bill, and attached to my bill was a gyro, even though it was paid direct debit, because they never expected me to do anything with it. So the funds that were in that account would be siphoned off to an abandoned funds account in case I come back for them. And then when I've not come back for them, they'll go back to HMRC or funnel them off to whatever they want to sponsor. It's not hard.
Sorry.
Go on, Michael.
We had a saying in the army when I became an instructor. It was 7 P's, and forgive me for swearing. It's not a bad swear word, but is prior preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. And it's true in many sense of the word. But I think I've noticed it as well, where I've spoke to people and they've looked at me like I'm absolutely lost it, you know, and I'm like, they don't know thyself. It's the first thing, is to know thyself. You must find yourself in you. Do you tell your brain what to think, or does your brain tell you what to think? So you have to own it and find yourself and open the spaces in the brain that you've never used before in your life. And you'll get that. Unfortunately, you have to go down. You have to go down, but it's how low you go until you realize and learn that lesson. Find yourself. You can do it through meditation. The
trouble is, Michael, you're talking about going back to a lot of childhood trauma that won't allow them to go that deep, because, for one, not many people would believe that the mother and father would tell them lies, even though those parents don't know that they're telling lies. They take it as true. So all of a sudden, whatever meditating you do and whatever how far deep you want to go, you still can't know yourself, because you're still acting in a world that you shouldn't be acting like. You should be acting differently. So if you don't know how to act in the environment that you're in, you're never going to know who you are, because everything that you've been taught is what you are. So if you are who, like you mentioned about the planning for piss poor performance, we were the same in the prison service, 15 years in the prison service. You have to be like that. You know, that's the best job I ever had, Michael. You know, working, brilliant job, absolutely brilliant job. Management, not much. If you failed in my job, you could get promoted, and if you could make a portfolio and laminate it and present it with a PowerPoint display, you'd probably get promoted even further. But if these people couldn't hand toilet rolls out, couldn't deal with prisoners, you know, that's the difference. So when you've been on these front lines, and when you've been in these courts, and you've seen when you've presented remedies in these courts, and you've seen how they've acted, you know what you're up against. Then they thought, like on me, they called armed police on me. I had over 30 coppers over the first 5 hearings. Nothing in the newspapers, nothing on the TV about armed police attending Wigan County Court for a serving prison officer who 3 days earlier was handcuffed to a bank robber at Warrington General while he's having treatment. There's no coppers in sight. So I knew 12, 14 years ago with what these people were doing, I knew that this was bad. And when it started to break down, Michael, when I broke it down that everything I'd been taught now was up for grabs. Everything that I've been taught from this education system, you mentioned how our history isn't what we think it is. All the history, we can find out history from other sources now that aren't just mainstream. And there's a balance to all this history. It's not all just one-sided. And when you look at the other side of it, there is many, many, many questions. The problem I have with questions, Michael, is if I ask a question, I get called names, then the people I'm asking the question to don't know how to answer. They don't know the subject. But if it's illegal to ask questions, then there's something very, very, very wrong. And when we are seeing our so-called king tracing his bloodlines back to Vlad the Impaler, which is the dragon bloodline, the serpent bloodline that goes all the way back to to Abraham, where the two bloodlines split, where we had the bloodline of the promise and the bloodline of the non-promise, and that's all that we've got playing out here. And then all the rest of us mongrels that are in between. It's a spiritual battle that's been going on for a very long time.
Yeah. Oh, the spiritual battle is going on now. You know, it really is. But the more, that's what I mean by, you know, everyone has their path in life, and they are the only ones that can walk it. That's as simple as that. But what I'm saying is finding thyself. No. And you see, there's different ways to meditate as well. But finding thyself, you must open that brain and allow the frequency to connect. That's what I personally found. I'm not saying it's going to work for other people, but then you're shown the way, and that's it's stood me in good stead, a hell of good stead, you know. And when, like you say, with asking questions, well, you got to be as king. So I never, if somebody asks me a question, I always reply with a question. You know, it's simple. And there's one question that I do ask when I've worked a few places, you know, and to know what level they're on. We're just having a general conversation, and I'll just throw a question in saying, do you really believe that we've been to the moon? And depending on their answer is the level I know of how awake they are. If you know what I mean. It's that, you know, to me, it's that simple. You can tell who's awake and who isn't, who to have a conversation with, and how far to go. You know, like, I try and help people. Like, if I speak to my sister, don't want to know. Even though she knows what I did in the military, she knows what I was. I'm not going to say what I was on here, but I've done a lot. And, you know, the amount of times I've tried to help her, especially with don't take the, no, she's done them all. And she won't speak to me over that, even though you're trying to save her. But it's literally, it's crazy. My brother, during that time, I was telling him, and he was going around the house with kitchen gloves on, frightened to put his rubbish outside. And I'm on the phone, I'm saying, why? What are you doing?
Wow.
It's literally, you know, that's how deep this greenwashing can go. And I told him, stop watching the television. Stop it. It's hypnotizing you. It's putting subliminal deep things in your brain that you don't even realize. That's how clever they are. That's how clever it is. You know, but yeah. I don't want to go too deep on that because I've got my views on those things.
Well, mate, we've got a lot of rabbit holes that are opening up here. I mean, Owen, when you were coming on, you wanted to talk about something specific. Me and Alex touched on stuff earlier on about what was going on over in Ashfield, where this hurricane has wiped out the entire town, and it just so happens that there's a lithium mine right near Ashfield, and they want to expand that, but the people in Ashfield went, no, we're not interested in that. Well, there is nowhere for people in Ashfield to live right now. So it's been a bit of a coincidence that there's a potential now to have jobs for the boys and open this up for a massive, you know, there's going to be a lot of employment as well and all this kind of stuff, but they're going to socially change that area of North Carolina. So you're in Portugal. What have you got to tell us? Unmute yourself, mate.
Sorry.
Tell you're ringing me up last week, aren't you? Being all
Sorry about that. Yeah, so just recently looking at the fires that's been here in Portugal, I experienced the fires here in Portugal in 2017, massive fires. And there were reports at the time, even back then, of incendiary devices being found, members of some fire service being arrested because they actually set the fires themselves. Now, if I go back 2 years ago, there was a massive fire in one of the national parks here. And it was the first time that I'd actually noticed that area was actually in that for lithium mining. So on the strength of listening to you and Alex having your conversations tonight, I was just actually stooping. I'm actually looking at a couple of maps on my laptop here of fires since 2017 to present day. And then I'm actually looking at another map alongside it, which shows the potential sites for lithium. So there has to be a connection here, because it can't just be Portugal. It can't just be what's happening in the US that this is happening. You know, they're calling them land grabs, you know, as well as nothing's coincidental anymore.
We spoke about Hawaii as well, Owen, how all the locals' homes and businesses were wiped out by this devastating fire, yet millionaires and billionaires' properties didn't even get a wisp of smoke through the windows. So this is a land grab. They're ethnically cleansing, as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, even if I go back to the fires of 2017 in Pedrogo Grande, Pedrogo the Kennedy area where I was living, they had 25 members of the local council that were in court probably a couple of years after the fire, because the money that the people of the villages, the people that lost properties, farmland, etc., the money that they were supposed to get was actually divvied out between the council members, and they were all taken to court over it. So that just shows you that level. If it's on a council level, what's it like on a mass scale? You know? So with fires happening in particular places, and all of a sudden this land is actually earmarked for lithium mining, you have to question that. You know? There was one guy last year, there was a fire last year in my area, and I did a video about it, and it was apparently a guy that the police knew that travelled up and down the country that lit fires, but they couldn't do anything until they lit the fires. And it was like, well, that doesn't make sense. There's got to be a preventative measure, but no preventative measures were taken. But yet, you know, farmland, woodland, people, you know, because a lot of the woodland here, yes, it's eucalyptus, which is probably the worst you can have, but a lot of the land is what family have been given to the children, and it's been an investment. But yet they're letting an arsonist, an own arsonist, go around on my fires. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it, if this person is travelling up and down the country and the police know where he is, 2 and 2, 4?
Doesn't always make 4, but like I say, you've got to look at patterns. This is what
exactly that.
Is the patterns forming here? Are the people who are involved in patents for modification of weather, are these being used? Are these being utilised? We know they're real. The patents are there. The experiments have been done. You know, we mentioned earlier on that the RAF did an experiment in the 50s where they flooded a town out in Devon. Devastating. People died and everything. It's only years later they admit it. Well, what's being done about it? Nothing. Because people don't talk. People don't use social media to go and actually get information. You know, I mean, I'm that shadow banned on Facebook that there's absolutely no point really for me to use it if I was trying to get information out, because I don't even know if the cat reads it, never mind anybody else. But the information that comes through my newsfeed is from everywhere. I just couldn't, I couldn't imagine not getting this information in. I mean, it's not just national and international stuff. I mean, boots on the ground. You're in Portugal showing me what's going on with these fires. I had Eve Bartlett and Vanessa Beeley in Syria speaking, corresponding with me as well as publishing stuff about the Syrian war, which we were being told it was a civil war, which it wasn't. It was an insurgency. It was to change the leadership. You know, ISIS was being funded, trained and armed by the West to invade Syria. Well, we're not told that, but I was getting all that information. And once you get that information to balance out the crap that comes through normal mainstream stuff, then at least you can see if there's a pattern. And, we look at what's going on now, where we look at Iran, the attacks on Iran, the attacks on Israel back. Where does this stop? It doesn't stop. Netanyahu, even though that Satanist is dead now, whoever played Netanyahu yesterday, is said that we will not stop till we've achieved our objective of getting our hostages back. We don't even know that there's hostages still there. This is just a narrative. These are, for me anyway, these are the wars and rumours of wars. We don't know what's going on. We've got to just take the information and not put our mortgages on it, not put everything we own on this being true. Because the best lies that you can have is the lies that is littered with truth, because you can argue and debate all day long about it. And that's, that's where we're at with it now.
I could comment on those things, but
It's
just from my experience.
Classified, mate. Classified.
It's dark.
You have to kill Alex if you told me, mate.
It's dark, Any war is awful. It's horrible. It's you just don't.
Well, it goes back to what you said, Michael, when you came on, when you sat in that foxhole, going, "Why am I following these orders?" We had Nuremberg, where we had people said, "Yeah, I shot him in the face." "Why did you shoot him in the face?" "I was ordered to." Well, straight away, it takes me back to my mum saying, "Well, if your mate jumped off a cliff, would you?"
Right.
But these are orders. You said you were, "Yes, sir," "Sergeant Major, sir," all that stuff. Well, all of a sudden, something, somewhere, questioned, why am I doing this? Well, I had three uncles in World War II. Two were at Dunkirk. They came back from the war, all three of them. But what happened over there stayed over there. They came back physically, but they weren't the same. They weren't the same, Michael. And they were fighting to stop our country being invaded by socialism, fascism. That's what we were told, right? But I now know that World War I and II were both manufactured, both propagandized, and both promoted. And that sickens me. It sickens me. It sickens me because then I've got to see people, singing the Queen's anthem, then the King's anthem, and telling me how good Prime Minister Winston Churchill was, when all that background doesn't portray any of it. It's just what you get told on the surface. Because my mum loved him. My mum thought we wouldn't have won the war without him. It's silliness. It's going back to, I vote for Labour because my dad did. Well, why did your dad vote Labour? Well, they're a working man's party. Well, does this look like a working man's party now that you've voted in for another 4 years? They're creaming you. They're absolutely raping the general public, and they don't care.
Oh yeah.
And World War III, we've been under it for a long time. It's always been a spiritual battle, but something's going to play out, and it's got to play out.
60 odd years.
Yeah, it's got to play out.
60 odd years we've been in World War III, and people don't even realise that we're at war. They just don't, because they believe it.
Football's on, the chip is open, mate. No,
that's right, and they got a beer.
Exactly.
That's it. I don't drink. I won't drink alcohol. I just don't. I believe it's poison. But I did have a few jars back in the days. But yeah, there's I understand what you mean, and I know why people won't talk about things, because once you see some of these evil things, horrible sights, it's like your brain takes a photo or a mini movie. And talking about it can trigger it. There's things that I will never, ever, ever say. These eyes have seen things that no humans should see, and I'm not proud of it. Let me tell you, it's an awful, awful thing, and
Well,
we'll leave it on
that. When I was working in jail, I had a lad who was on the wing, and I was locking up. I was doing my count one night before I went home, and I could hear him talk to someone as if he was on a mobile phone. So I obviously didn't alert him, and I was looking and checking to see what he was doing, and he was having a full conversation with somebody in his pad that wasn't there. So I left into it, went on my rounds, come back in the next morning, and started to chat to him. I says, "So who were you talking to last night when I was going home, mate?" He went, "What do you mean?" I said, "I could hear you." I said, "I came over to your pad because I thought you was on the phone." He went, "No, I've not got a phone, boss." I went, "I know you've not." I said, "But who were you talking to?" And he went all pensive and like this, and he went, "It's just a voice." He says, "It's not always there, but sometimes it comes and it's quite prevalent." Now, this was a lad. He had tattoos all over his face, mate. He was a sniper in Afghanistan, and he was good at his job, but he didn't like killing people. But he was good at his job. Do you see how the difference was? Because he'd been broken. He'd been broken down and built into that.
That's right.
So he knew that he was good at it, but he didn't like doing it. But he was good at it. So what had happened was it was an IED that blew him up. He got put in the hospital for 3 months, got released, discharged from hospital, discharged from the army, no house, nowhere to live, no job, no money, just out on the streets. So the lad had nothing, and he ended up turning to drink and drugs, ended up in jail.
A lot do.
So I'm chatting to him about this, and I said, "So what does the voice?" I said, "Is it your voice or is it another voice?" He says, "No, it's not my voice. I know my voice." He says it's very prominent. It's like it's sat next to me. And I said, "Well, what's its name?" And he gave me the name Zozo. And when I went away and researched that, because I remembered that name from somewhere, it's a demon that's associated with Ouija boards. So when I went back in, I asked him, "When did you do the Ouija board?" And he couldn't believe I'd asked him that. And he said, "I don't know how you know it." He says it was in, I always forget the base in Afghanistan begins with a B, but I always forget what the name is. Anyway, he did this there, and he said all it did when it came to his turn was it kept going, "Kill yourself, kill yourself." And bearing in mind, Michael, this lad's been broken down. He's full. Doors are wide open for demons to come and dance. He's killing people. The demons can do whatever they like here. And he was. He'd been fighting. He'd been fighting against this for so long.
Yeah.
He went, I can't believe you just said that. He says, "We tried burning the board and getting rid of it." He says, "We just couldn't do anything with it." And that's when I said to him, I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, mate." I said, "I've been down all these routes." I said, "I used to do mediumship 20 years ago." I said, "Do you know where I found the truth for me?" He says, "Where?" I said, "The Bible." I said, "Because the story was intellectually different to everything else. I'm the only way, the truth, the life. Nobody gets God but me. All these other religions, including the Catholics now, say that's not true because all religions go to God." And so I went, "Well, that's a different message." And I went, "So, have you ever read the Bible?" And he said, "No." I said, "Have you ever looked into it?" He says, "I was brought up Catholic." I went, "So you've never looked into it then?" I said, go and read and see what it does. If you've got, if you get nothing out of it, at least you've done your due diligence." And he went, "Okay." The next time I saw him, and I finished not long after that, Michael, but the next time I saw him, he said, I think it was on a Wednesday. He says, "I'm on the chapel list for Sunday, boss."
Good.
Mate, good on you, because it was the only thing that would have settled those demons. I've seen so much with schizophrenics and stuff like that. It's not just about mental. It's not a physical mental disorder.
Oh no.
No. It's other than.
Have you ever heard of Headley Court?
What? Sorry.
It's Headley Court. It's up in oh crikey! It's London. I can't remember it, but what it is where all the injured soldiers go. I was there for a long time because it took me 3 years to walk again. So, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's what we call PTSD, but I think it's a lot more than that. And being in the prison service, you would see quite a lot of that, and it's knowing how to deal with that.
Yeah.
it is trauma. It's very, very bad trauma. You know, the slightest thing can set these things off. And, you know, I've known soldiers to, you know, lose it on the streets when they've come out of the army, like you say. And I was looked after very well. I've got to admit, I can't fault the army and the NHS for what they did for me on my return to Civilian Street. Although it's still a big shock, and it's one hell of a task to adjust. Very, very difficult. But some soldiers just don't. They can't. And I'm afraid a lot of them commit suicide, and that people don't know about. And it's never on the news. It's never. They always hide these things, and which to me is awful. In my I think you know, a good idea and an example. I know it might be going off topic here, but all these abandoned army camps that they're sticking all these illegal immigrants in, which they shouldn't be, but they should open up one of them for soldiers leaving the service, and those who can't adapt to the civilian life, they could do something with one of those camps to retrain, reorganize, redo things, and at least it would keep them alive and give them some purpose in life. Because once they leave the army, they've lost their purpose in life. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, because, well, you're broken, aren't you? They break you.
Oh, yeah.
They break you.
You're a trained killer.
They won't.
Yeah. And,
so, what, you know, what does a sniper do when he's buying a packet of crisps in the shop and somebody's getting aggressive? I don't know if you remember, have you ever heard of the Peterloo Massacre, Michael?
No.
The Peterloo Massacre happened up here in Manchester. And believe it or not, it was round about the Bills of Exchange Act when that came in. And it was because the mills and the companies in Manchester who were paying, you know, poor people frivolous amounts of money to do all this industry, they now could import it cheaper than what it was being made here. So they went on strike and said, well, we're not going to do this if you're going to import it. So they started to shut everything down, and they were getting a grip of things. Churchill sent a battalion that had just come out of World War One. So from bills of exchange coming in into the 1900s, where all the millings are happening and everything. So don't forget now, we've gone bankrupt. We're now in a debt-based economy with these poor people are creditors, very poor creditors, but the creditors nonetheless. And they understood, even though they couldn't read and write, they understood that they had something physical to trade with, which was their labour.
Yeah.
The Italian who's come back from World War One, who, I mean, you know, people were being shot because they were running away from things. Shell shock wasn't a known thing. It was trauma. It was PTSD, whatever you want to call it. But all of a sudden, all these armed troops who go up to Manchester to quell this, open fire on women and children. And they kill women and children. They've just come out of a war, and they're sent to deal with people who are going, we're being ripped off. Exactly what we're talking about now. So nothing.
I've never heard of that.
Peterloo Massacre, look it up.
I'll have a look into that, yeah. I know many of what Churchill did. And for people to call him a hero is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I'll look into that. That's interesting. I do like the history of them, of the truth.
Please do. Yeah. Jason, how are we doing, sir?
Not too bad. Can you hear me?
I can, crystal clear, lad.
Right, good stuff. No, just without fear of offending Michael, I'm just going to say something. I don't mean this in a bad way, but unfortunately, the army are what I would describe as useful idiots, and the reason I say that is because they will follow orders blindly. You know, and the thing is, the army is fighting over the richest possessions. That's all it's about. It's the people at the top fighting over possessions. They're never going to get injured. It's all going to be the working class that get injured. And unfortunately, if they get enough of the working class, if they con enough of the working class, they'll fight for these rich people's possessions. And I mean, to me, straight away, the army is it flags up. It was like a massive con, and I flagged and I spotted it straight away. I'm not killing myself for someone else's possessions, sort of thing, you know. But yeah, so it is one of those. We all get conned. None of us don't.
Yeah, I agree.
There's none of us can't get conned, but you just got to
No.
realize once you've been conned, is spot the con and learn from your mistakes, sort of thing.
Yeah. We're sold a lie, and we're right. You're right. It's quite hard to admit that, yeah, I was a useful idiot. But me personally, like I said, I believed, that I was fighting for my country. I wasn't too much into the royal family, but I was fighting for my people to keep them safe. And it's just the way I've been brought up. And, me granddad would say, join the army, lad, become a man and fight for queen and country and all that. And then you find out the royal family are the biggest traitors and drug dealers and child traffickers on the planet. You get angry. I can tell you now, oh boy, I'd love to be in a room with them.
Calm down.
But you know what I mean. But you are right. Yeah, sorry but yeah.
No, it's right, mate, because this is real life. This brings out all these emotions. For somebody who's been there, like I say, I know people personally who have been in the army, had honourable discharges by now, and come out, and they're proud of what they've done. But they don't know what the motives are that are behind what's going on. They're told a narrative. Everybody is. Everybody is. If we were going into Iraq the first time for just oil, people might have gone, oh, hang on a minute. But that's not what we went for. It was for something completely different. And it was because it was going to cause us issues. And people like you say, I love my country. It's not just loving a piece of land, it's loving the people. You don't want their way of life to change. But that's not what we have anymore. Our way of life is absolutely changed. Our way of life has been forced into being changed by all of this. And it's only through having these conversations. I mean, I agree with Jason. The useful idiot thing isn't about being derogatory towards anybody, because there are useful idiots everywhere. We've got useful idiots in the truth movement that go into courts and say, I have no contract. I'm a man. That's useful to them. It's of no use to us. We knew that 10, 15 years ago. People are still talking about it now. Something new. We need something new. We've got to start talking about this and get the conversation flowing. Alex, you're muted. You're still muted.
He's new to this.
Tell you what, you're all taking piss last week, weren't you, when I was miming? All taking piss out of me.
It was weird.
Yeah.
So this talk about useful idiots. I think we need to clarify it, because there's more going on in the background, and what that is you've heard the phrase sometimes, TMI, too much information. What happens is people get absolutely bogged down with the sheer volume of information out there, and you don't know what's good, what's bad, and so on and so forth. There's a massive volume. Then the real problem is the opposite of what it seems like. It's not too much information. It's not enough information of the right type. So we lack the quality information that we need. This is why people have typically in the past not done the due diligence, because they could trust journalists. And therefore, they were given the right sorts of information that wasn't obfuscated or obscured. And then they could make an intelligent decision based on weighing the facts. But they aren't given the luxury of that anymore. So everyone is drowning in this cyber world with information, opinion, ideas, narrative from everywhere. And it's vast. I mean, one of the things about the internet is it shrunk the world down into your living room. There is literally so much information to choose from, out of which you could stitch together something. So I think, it's important to put it in its fullest context. One of the problems we're really facing here is that we don't have enough quality information. And this might lead to, I know Taylor's muted, might lead to these sorts of questions about Q all revolve around this, because at the end of the day, once you've got a situation where people don't have access to reliable information, they're susceptible to every type of theory, every type of speculation, every type of story construction, because we have to create narratives of hope. This is the thing. You can't continue to sustain positive mental health when you don't have stories of hope. So you can talk about Christianity, spirituality, religion as offering a message of hope. You can talk about QAnon because the goodies win in the end. The white hats win. The problem with it is everybody needs stories on a simplistic level to feel good or not feel good. Nobody wants to feel bad. And this is why we try and stitch together happy ever after stories out of this massive information. And the problem is a lot of this is down to journalism and corrupt institutions. We know when we served the police notices in 2020, and we never got round to serving the news corporations notices, but it's the journalists who are the most at fault, in my opinion, and the news outlets.
They're not journalists, are they? They're not journalists.
No, not anymore.
Propaganda mouthpieces, because journalism involves investigating and learning the truth and then sharing the truth. We're not in that. We're not involved in that in the media anymore. If we didn't have social media, and that's why you can see social media that's under so much attack at the minute. You can't use this. You're getting shouted at for possibly thinking about things even. So these are the times where people have got to start asking these real questions of these entities. I mean, we can't just keep allowing them to just keep going on and doing what they're doing. But until
the next point, Paul, just to follow up, right? Because Dorian said on the chat, create your own story. Now, that's exactly right. You've got to bring it back to the individual. But just to say, that doesn't mean it's a subjective account like your own version of Alice in Wonderland, where you all go like Robinson Crusoe and live on an island and get away from it all. It is your own story, but it doesn't have to be an escapist fantasy story. And when we were talking before about, it's like data, there's so much data. You remember when you did maths at school and you plotted the points on a graph? And for example, 2 points, you could plot a straight line. 3 points, you can start to plot a curve. So the more data points that you've got, the more you can create that pattern, that trajectory. And then you can extrapolate from there. So the point is, we struggle with the question of knowledge, how to actually know things adequately and know that we're not being conned. If we've not got good journalists and good sources, too much information we think, but it's not enough quality information, we've got to take our data points and we've got to create that pattern and then extrapolate, and that's the same for God's logic. Or, as Michael talked about, astrotheology, the positions of the planets. The reason astrology works is because there is a cosmic choreography. The patterns exist as above, so below. The patterns exist everyone and everywhere to be discerned. So the point is, if we're looking to discern the deeper questions, then inevitably we should be able to find some coherent logic to help us in this maze of too much information that we feel under the pressure of. So there are things we can do. We can construct our own stories for sure, and it isn't just fantasy escapism.
Oh, another newbie. Got a mute on.
That's another conversation stopper, Alex.
Yeah, I was just going to say, conversation topic came to mind. But it's hard. The point here is to pull all this together, because it's interesting to get a veteran on, a veteran with, right, because when you started off, you talked about the starting point for you. You're in the field, in the middle of a war, start to ask the existential question, what the bloody hell am I doing here? I could be blown limb from limb, and it could be for no good reason. What's the point of it all? Now, you can see that as a spiritual question, a philosophical question, but it's a very practical question. And that was the beginning of your quest to understand something much deeper than the mundane experience that you're having. So we all have that starting point, and often it's in crisis because we can't make sense of what's going on. There's no rhyme or reason, but somewhere beyond it all, something in us cries out to find that deeper meaning, to scratch beyond the surface.
Guided.
Yeah.
I was guided.
Yeah.
By, let's call the heavens, you know. You know, and I just learned that, you know, that we're all stars. That's one thing I learned from our ancestors. But what are you? Are you a superstar, a mass star, or are you a gangster? You see, a superstar. We're all stars, but what star are you? And you've got, obviously, the answer should be, well, I'm a mass star. Because when you master things, it does. And it just, like you said, the position of the planets. The first planet I learned about was Saturn. Because Saturn comes from the old Latin. The S and L are the same. So you got Saturn, put an L in, and it's Latin, the language, you see. So, and obviously the sun is Ra, Horus, Ra, and Set. It was the gods, Elohims. But yeah, it fascinated me, and if you talk to like an old school farmer, he will tell you, yes, he plants his fields and does his crops in the rotation through the sun, through the stars. So every morning it's Aries, the ram, the horns. Then that's coming into spring, your spring. So your next one is Taurus, the bull, torso. So you get the bulls out to plow the fields. You see what I mean? They follow it, like Aries, Taurus, and then when it's at the top, I can't remember my astrological star signs now, but they all follow it. Like Leo the lion, he will harvest it. He's a protector while it grows. Virgo the virgin is the virgin harvest. And you've got Libra, the scales. It's when it's time to store, you know, and to see you through the winter. That's what I found very, very interesting. And I thought, wow, you know, and you know, way back I was brought up on a dairy farm, but they had cows, so I didn't really learn about the stars then because they didn't plant any crops. I just learned how to shovel the poo. But yeah, astrotheology is very, very interesting. It's because it's frequency, and we are energy. You know, we're energy and frequency. So the position of the planets affects us. Like there's 7 wandering stars. So Monday, Moon Day, Tuesday. So that's why we get Monday blues. You know, Tuesday is Mars, which we bicker and fight. Wednesday is Mercury. Thursday, Jupiter, justice. Friday is Virgo. That's why all the girls get done up on a Friday night. Woo! This is Virgo, the Virgin. Saturday is Saturn Day. That's when we're a bit naughty, when we drink a bit too much, when we eat meat. We eat more meat on a Saturday. And then Sunday, we always go, oh, please forgive me for yesterday Saturday because I've done some bad things and naughty things, you know. So when you know that, you can start to help along your journey, if you know what I mean, because you know what mood you're going to be in because of the frequency.
Yeah, it's really interesting that I think, mythologies, and because mythologies are codifications of experiences that humans have had over a long period of time. So even outside of specific scriptural traditions, well, astrology ultimately goes back to Babylon. So you're talking several hundred years before Christ, and people have been watching the sky, noticing. Again, it's pattern recognition. And the thing about our brains is they're extremely good at noticing patterns and connections between things. So once you understand how things are connected to other things, you've got a map. And it's the same with protons, neutrons, and electrons on an inner level, on a microscope level, compared to out there using a telescope. The structures reflect right across the board. The fractals that people see when they're doing ayahuasca and DMT, there's an underlying structure to reality which can be decoded. Now, obviously, from the point of view of Christianity, God says be very careful with some of these things, because if you decode some of them, that wasn't meant to be. Some yes, some no. And when we become fascinated with knowledge for its own sake, we can get off track. But it's really good that when we see patterns, like you say, Michael, there's practical patterns when you can see an application to a harvest and people were connected. They're looking up at the sky and they could see how it was connected. Above and below were connected. Then, of course, that leads to potential harmony. Nobody wants to be out of alignment. So all the mythologies have some sort of codifying, storied value that are repositories of human wisdom. So it's all very interesting. It all comes down to pattern recognition. And of course, we know the elites are very good at this stuff and have their own insiders who are planning things along the lines of astrological dates and so on and so forth.
Oh, trust me. These elite, what we call elites, they're not elite. They're not elites, but we call them elites. They know astrotheology. I can tell you that now. They know it, and they know a lot more than what we do, unfortunately. I can tell you one person who does know it, and I know that for a fact, and that's Trump. But I don't trust. I heard that.
Oh, that's it. You've set him off. He's come straight back. You've set his fuse off now.
He does know astro. I don't know, but you know.
Come on, Taylor. He's set you off now. Come on.
We're gonna have a conversation about Mr. Trump now, are we?
Mate, you've already said it. He's going to tell you if he wants to, anyway.
The guy who loves the snake poem.
Yes.
Well, I'll be honest. The thing is, you will only know what side Trump's on when he's shown by his actions. His actions haven't been bad so far. I mean, I think he's one of the only presidents there's been no wars while he's been in power, whether you like it or not. He's brought them to an end. I mean, I'm still on the fence with Trump. I hope for the best, but it could be another con. You know, if we're living in if we are living in a satanic world and Satan's the great deceiver, then
we are
possible we're falling for another scam. It's, you know,
Jason, Allah is the greatest of all deceivers in the Quran. So we've got a real mix going on here. Taylor, are you going to unmute and join the conversation?
I didn't even know I was muted. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, thanks for not lying, mate. He lit your fuse.
It worries me when somebody says, "I'm not going to lie."
Exactly. In an American accent as well. As if.
I actually served in with the U.S. Marine, the Rangers, U.S. Rangers in Fort Bragg in Texas. I served there for 6 months, teaching them how to shoot. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you know what? We bring our American correspondent on every week, and we can't shut him up. And I can't get a
this
word.
this isn't Taylor. This is he's been kidnapped. This is
It's
The
Taylor,
mask.
a Taylor
Taylor's,
mask. He's in a Taylor mask, right?
Taylor's in Guantanamo, is it?
Yeah. Taylor's in Guantanamo, and he's going to be done for crimes against humanity.
Oh, come on. Give the lad a chance, man. But yeah, I find we have.
Taylor, what's happened this week? What's happened this week? And don't say nothing, because I'm seeing that North Carolina is,
Yeah.
you know, they're having a lot of. I mean, I'll tell you what stood out to me, Taylor. The amount of people, ordinary people, coming together to make things happen, to get supplies out to these people. So you can't say that the Americans don't come together. It's the same with. I can only speak from from the British people. When the shit hits the fan, they can come together, and that's what I've been seeing over the past week in North Carolina. So, as our American correspondent, fill us in on what's going on in the US, mate.
All right. Well, fair enough. Oh my god, why am I echoing?
You both.
Have you got YouTube on?
No.
No, it was Webby. Webby went, and you thought it was an echo.
Okay.
Yeah, I cleared my throat like you did, so that's probably what you thought.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. There's Well, first of all, I don't understand why anyone lives down in that part of the country, since there's always big storms and tornadoes and such down there. That's just my opinion. But yeah, big hurricane. I forget what the name of the hurricane is. But yeah, lots of people displaced. Millions are without power, without water, and we've been getting the resources to them in order to help them get by. Hopefully, this will teach them. I mean, I don't want to make light of a situation like that, but hopefully, this maybe teaches people don't live where hurricanes and stuff are very common. You know, that's just my opinion.
Where there's loads of lithium. Let's not go and live there either.
Something like that.
Got it.
I've heard talk of this being an engineered storm. I don't personally believe it.
Why is that?
Just because of the pattern of it, where it went to, how it spread, etc. Seemed some people find it to be very suspicious. It's not really something that interests me. I don't really believe it, but if you want to look into it, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, why don't you believe that that's possible? What makes you think that it's not?
Well, because I know that the deep state doesn't have the tools to be able to make something like that happen anymore, and the White Hats wouldn't do something like that. So it's the only explanation is that it's natural, or the only other explanation, if it is a manufactured event, then there would have to be some pocket of the deep states that would make in their last hurrah.
Well, hang on. Why would you say it's a manufactured event? Why is it not a natural event that is expanded upon? Because we know that the patents are there to stop hurricanes and tornadoes. There are also patents there to make them bigger. So, is it plausible or possible, shall we say, that the military could do that? Bearing in mind, I know you're going to say about the military's all on Trump's side and everything, but there's lithium all around this area that they wanted to expand the mine into, and the people there didn't want it. So there's a coincidence there, Taylor. That's why I can't just dismiss it that it isn't
Yeah.
expanded upon. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I'm going to have to do more research into the topic. It hasn't really interested me because I've been more paying attention to the Diddy case than anything else. But yeah, I mean, I'll look into it. Just hasn't been my prerogative at the moment. We all have our prerogatives.
Just to let you know, Dorian, I can't wrench you from here. I've got to be on YouTube to give you a spanner, mate. So can't help you with that yet. Because if I start, I don't want to mess this tech up. Alex might disappear and everybody else might do. So try and private message me that link, mate, and I'll add it afterwards. Go on, Sarah. Sorry.
That's funny. So she says, "Can I be Trump's foreign policy advisor?" If only I was. But yeah. Now, as far as the P Diddy thing, I think that people aren't looking at the bigger picture when it comes to him. They say, that they're all focused on Diddy himself, Sean Combs, but people aren't thinking about the bigger picture being what is his links to everyone else. People like Jay-Z, LeBron James, Madonna, Lady Gaga, all of these big entertainment Hollywood actors or album artists, they've been infested into the industry for decades. And what this P Diddy thing is just the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be once it comes out that he's linked to Jeffrey Epstein, which it already is starting to. Then that gives the green light to go after all the other big names as well. So it's like a domino effect. You have to start with one before you get to the rest. And I can send you a list of it's a JPEG of every single person that we know is either under submission in Gitmo or dead because of their affiliation to Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. And P Diddy's on that list, as well as many others that I mentioned. And you mentioned the Bieber thing. Yeah, Bieber was being passed around like a used condom. It's that's how he became big. You don't become big out of nowhere. You have to have connections. And Bieber, they saw how he was getting some views on YouTube, so they're like, hey, you know what? Let's make him into a big superstar. So they decided to pass him around, if you know what I'm saying. And a lot of these big names, and Bieber's even come out a few days ago and talked about that. So this stuff is all starting to come out. And I'll repeat this again for anyone who's a skeptic. Would this be happening? All this be happening if the deep state was still in control? Would they not just be covering all this up like they did for Jimmy Savile and all the other people in the past? There comes a point where you have to, like you said, pattern recognition. There comes a point where you have to recognize a pattern. And, we have a pattern going on here that's been going on for several years now. And, I'm not going to argue anymore about the whole Trump or Q thing. If you don't want to look into it, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to sit here and try to shove it down your throat. I've already mentioned links and stuff like that. I've posted stuff. I have stuff on my channel, but clearly no one wants to look at it. So I'm not gonna harp on it anymore. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, and just speak on what's going on from week to week from an American point of view.
I find it very interesting. That's a shame. I find the Q and the whole Trump thing very interesting indeed.
Well, every time I talk about it, no one seems to take it seriously, or they just laugh, or they don't even bother to.
You know what, Taylor? Let me stop you, because what you're doing is you're looking in the chat room and saying nobody cares. There's 45 people watching. Are they all commenting, or are there going to be another few hundred people who will watch this? Do you see what I'm saying?
No, yeah, it's a good point. But the problem is that I'm not getting any views on them. I'm not noticing any views on the videos that I'm posting, nor am I getting any comments or anything like that. So that's
Are they your views? Are they your views? Are they views of other people's that you're posting links to?
Well, Obviously, I'm not going to notice new views for videos that aren't mine, but videos that I've posted, yes, they have not gotten any views. And I'll admit I don't have everything on my channel, but I've posted some stuff, and I posted my channel link in the chat several times. I don't know. I'm just it just
Taylor,
happen overnight.
when me and Alex started this podcast up, we didn't know how many, if anybody had watched. We didn't know if anybody would watch our channels afterwards and afterwards. Maybe you need to just keep promoting, keep talking, keep giving your story out, keep expanding your knowledge. Don't be just, like a one-trick pony type thing. You have a brain to accumulate knowledge, right? But don't make your decisions like that. You've got lots of information. It's like saying Trump is the savior. You don't know that. He's the best of what you've got. I can't disagree with anybody what's talked about Trump, that it's the best president that you've had in my lifetime, because there was no wars taken up. He did shut people up who were threatening things. The economy was coming back. He was going to build a wall and stop people coming in willy-nilly. He was doing all that. But then, for some reason, he falls away. All this corruption happens. He's obviously built back up now. Nobody can run against him. He's going to win. Nobody can run against him. So, come next month, you're going to have Trump back in charge, right? So, if you're saying that Trump and QAnon is all right, let's say it's all it's all right, everything's perfect for it, then we can see the fruit that will come from that. But what I'm saying to you is, yes, he's going to win. Yes, he might be doing all this stuff. Biden might be dead. Netanyahu might be dead. Some others might be in Guantanamo. Yes, all that might be true. But we've now got to see this fruit, because even all the information that you told me to look at, and I've scanned through some of it.
Have you?
It's information, Taylor. You can't put your hat on anything. You can't put your hat on anything. That's why I'm saying, don't get so upset or disheartened that people don't look. You're talking about something very specific. When I'm talking about you shouldn't be paying your gas bills, at least somebody wants to know, how do I not pay my gas? At least somebody wants to know that. You are coming from something that is, it's not believable, because people don't believe things like that can happen. One of my best friends over 9/11 said their own government wouldn't do that to their own people, and she believed that. So you've got to give people chance to catch you up. I mean, Taylor, you do a lot of research. You probably spend most of your days doing it. So
not every day.
You've got to give people chance to catch up, because people are way behind.
That's fine. That's fine. But the thing is that if I see people saying the exact same thing, and if I post links in the chat, no one responds, no one goes and looks at it, and if they have looked at it, then then please be willing to prove that you have, instead of just sitting there making me think that I'm accomplishing nothing and I'm just wasting my time. I'm
going to quote what, and you'll know this quote because of Donald Trump. Okay. Remember, he said in many of his rallies, never, ever, ever give up. Nothing worth doing in life is easy. Don't throw in the towel and don't be disheartened, bro. Honestly, us Britain, we've got a lovely connection with Americans, and I watch what's going on in America. I've followed Q for a long time because I was part of intelligence. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. Nobody can at this stage. But there's been a lot of proofs there that leads you, it's swinging that pendulum. Hold on a minute. There is something here. And you're right in what you're saying. What if Jeffrey Epstein would have come out if Trump went in? Would have
Yeah, you
Prince
know who shut
Andrew
down
been found out?
Island? Oh, let me just say this real quick. You know who? Just to get this, just because we're on the topic, you know who shut down Jeffrey Epstein's island on his way out? Jeff Sessions, the man that Trump was allegedly in a feud with, on his way on his final day, quote unquote, out the door. He raided Epstein's island and shut it down, and now they have all the evidence and dirt that the deep state had from his island. So,
Well,
Do you think Trump will tell the US citizens that the gas is free?
Well, maybe he won't word it specifically like that, but they have promised to take down the central banking system. It's going to be reformed, and we're already starting to see the fruits of that. If you notice, whenever they want to make the way that the banking system works when it comes to elections, whenever they want to keep a president in or they want to take him out, they always mess with the interest rates. So they keep the interest rates really high if they want a president out, like say with Bush in 2008 or with Herbert.
And then inflation.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about what people actually, physically pay attention to. They don't care about inflation. The public doesn't, at least. Unfortunately, it's just how it is. But yeah, in 1932, Herbert Hoover, in 2008, George Bush, etc., etc. But if they want to keep someone in, they want to prop up a president, they keep the interest rates low. Look at Obama. Interest rates were at 0 for him when he was when it was his second go around. So that's Jeremy Powell, the current Fed chair. He's Trump's boy. The Fed has already been, like I said, Q and Trump already promised that they're going to revamp the central banking system, and it's not just in America. This is worldwide. The BRICS alliance with China, Russia, and what is it? Iran, Syria, and a couple others.
India.
Yeah. They're
Syria. No, South Africa.
Yeah, South Africa. You're right. It's the same general region, but yeah. So, Trump was one of the ones behind helping to build up that movement.
So you won't go to war then? You won't go to war with these countries then?
No.
Trump comes in?
No,
So
I've already told you there's not going to be another war for Israel because Israel's done. That's
right. So what you're saying is Trump is going to completely go against Israel now.
He's already been going against Israel right from the beginning.
Even with his little atom at the wall, he was going against him.
Yes. People get so hung up on that whole him having the rabbis around him, or him at the Wailing Wall with the little beanie hat on, or
he did convert to Judaism. People
only pay attention to these surface level things, but they don't go.
He converted to Judaism. That's not surface level.
He did not convert to Judaism. I don't know where you got that from. He did not. He's not first of all, he's not a Freemason, and he's not I don't know what religion he is, but he's not into Judaism. What Trump is,
he says he's a Christian, but he had a little hat on, mate.
Okay, so we had a little. Okay, you see, this is what I'm talking about. I posted a video on my channel going over the whole Trump being a quote unquote puppet of Israel and being, a Jewish lover and all that. And yet, I can tell that people here have not watched that.
He doesn't have Taylor. He doesn't have to be a puppet. He doesn't have to be a puppet. He just has to know how to play the game.
You're not getting my point. You're not getting my point. My point is that you're going over the whole. I've posted stuff going over the whole Trump thing many times, and people have not looked at it. And we've gone over every single point. Him giving the moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Him acknowledging the Golden Heights as as Israeli. All that stuff. The Wailing Wall. We've gone over all that stuff. But you just have to take a look at it. And you know what? I will post it in the chat right now, just so that way people can see it. And because if I were to talk about it right now, we would be here for hours. So
the thing is, do you think I'm I just sit on the fence with everything because I haven't made it, and I don't know whether Trump's the same sort of thing. Is why don't you sit on the fence until, if you sit on the fence, you've got the option of jumping on both sides if things go pear-shaped. And I just think he could be. It's like the old saying: "Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer." Is that what he's doing? Or
Yes, thank you.
I'm not
Yes.
saying he is. I'm not saying he is because I'm.
No, you're right. You are right. You are absolutely right. And people, you know what? Go watch The Godfather, the first two movies. You know how Michael Corleone, after his father is killed and is ordered to be killed by the Jewish gangster, mafia gangster Hyman Roth. He and you know, his friend goes to him, is like, "We can get him. We have the muscle. We can go get him now." Michael Corleone, he says, "No, not yet." And his friend goes, "Why not? We have all the evidence. We know what we know he did it." And he says, "Yeah, I know, but my father told me, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. If I'll make him think I'm still on his side, and then I'll learn everything I need to about who is the traitor in my family." You see, the point is that you and Q has mentioned this before. How do you approach a dangerous animal? Do you attack it from the front, or do you gain its trust and then take it out while its guard is down? And that's exactly what Trump's been doing with Israel. It's exactly the same thing. He kisses up to Israel. You have Michael Corleone going to Hyman Roth. You're such a great man, Hyman Roth. You did so much. You did so much work with my father. You're such a great man. I could learn so much from you. Would you call him a Zionist? It's exactly the same thing with Donald Trump and Israel. He sucks up. He seemingly sucks up to him. And he did such a good job at it that he's convinced, and this is part of the reason for it, about the 30 plus million evangelical Christian Zionists in this country, who mostly make up the Republican voter base, who have been brainwashed by the Schofield Reference Bible. And Trump has to tread carefully with these people. That's why, even though Israel has been defanged and all of this, and all this stuff in Gaza is nothing more than theater, he still can't openly come out and say, "Oh, Israel bad, Netanyahu." And in fact, he actually has been saying in the last few years more and more. He's been being more and more open about it. He called back in 2020. He said about Netanyahu. He said, "Fuck him." Straight up quote, "Fuck Netanyahu." So yeah, and he has to play the game. This is how things are done at the highest level. You have to play that game. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. Otherwise, you'll end up like JFK. Look at JFK. Look at Ronald Reagan. Look at Princess Diana, etc. These people who try to go against the system, or they try to get on good terms with them, they end up being taken down. Look at James Forrestal, Joseph McCarthy, etc., etc. The Kennedys. It goes on and on and on. You cannot approach a dangerous animal from the front. You have to gain its trust and then defang it while its guard is down. And if you look at all the things Trump has done against Israel over the years in order to defang as what we call the shitty little state, you'll see exactly that he and the White Hats have been the single responsible thing for defanging Israel. He's had let's take Syria for example. The Syrian quote unquote civil war that was being funded by that was Mossad CIA. That was being funded by the US and the UK and Israel. Trump defunded them, and within weeks they were done. Meanwhile, Putin and Russia and Iran were bombing them physically on the ground in Syria. You know what Hillary was saying that she was going to do when she got in, which is what was supposed to happen. She said that she was going to imply that she was going to invoke a no-fly zone over Syria, aka she was going to shoot down any Russian plane that was in the area that was trying to take down ISIS. Now, yeah, and so Syria's saved. Assad has been saved. Syria's rebuilding, and they're working with Iran, Russia, and China in a military alliance now. So there you go. That's one thing. And I mentioned about Jeffrey Epstein's island. Trump is the one who took down Epstein's island. That was Jeff Sessions. Who was the one now about the Russiagate thing? How John McStain, I'm not going to say his name because he was such an evil piece of shit. Thank goodness that the White Hats got rid of him. So he was working with the ISIS fighters, and he and Hillary Clinton came up with the whole Russiagate scandal. They created it, and guess what? And guess who they put in charge of the investigation, quote unquote investigation into Trump? Robert Mueller, FBI head of the FBI. He's been a white hat the whole time, while he's been quote unquote going after Trump. Notice how that never went anywhere. He was actually investigating the Clintons, the Clinton Foundation, and all of their child trafficking out of Haiti. Ooh boy, that's another thing.
We'll only know for definite when it's all over.
Well,
I mean, when Trump gets back, if and when, because I'm not as confident as Webby that Trump's going to get back in, because if the corruption's that bad, then again I don't know whether he's doing it on purpose, whether he doesn't want to get in, because the global economy, we're heading for Armageddon. If the global financial system collapses, it will be. Well, I can imagine Mad Max style scenario.
Let me put it this way: if Trump isn't a shoo-in, and they are looking at Kamala Harris, who could have done already in the last 4 years what she said she's going to do if she becomes president, then the American people really need. There's no mirrors in their houses. They can't look at themselves, because if you can't see that the only benefits that you've ever had was Trump compared to what you've had since, then that comes down to the American voter. But I agree about the black hats and the white hats, and how this is sieving, because the black hats and the white hats are fighting against each other, but they all want the same outcome. That's my point. So if Trump is going to be anti-Israel now, then, Taylor, then that means that all Israel is going to be surrounded by its enemies. It's not going to have any friends anymore.
Well, here's what's going to happen with Israel. What's going to happen is that it's going to there's going to be two possible outcomes. The first being that the entire thing is just gone. We go back to pre-1948, or it becomes an open two ethnic double ethnic state, with the Palestinians and the Jews living in peace. That's what's happening with Israel. And you talked about Kamala and Biden. I've mentioned before, they're not the real people. Those guys are done. Biden, we know, was done back in 2019. He wasn't even a candidate. He was done in under the under Executive Order 13818 for corruption and human rights abuse. And we know that all of these people, oh my God, so many of them fall under that category. The last 4 years, and I've mentioned this before, 2020 was allowed to be stolen on purpose. The last 4 years, with under quote unquote Biden, have been nothing more than just a simulated version of what the deep state was intending to do. Because if you want to talk about COVID, oh my God, you thought COVID was bad, which it was, but it was planned to be a million times worse, because they were planning to do this under Hillary. And if it had happened, if Hillary had won, we would have had the 5 years lockdowns. We would have had the forced jobs. We would have had the chips, the Bill Gates chips. Bill Gates is gone too, by the way.
Okay, hang on, because me and Alex, we're going to have to wind this up now. We've been on for nearly 3 hours, so we're going to have to start bringing it in a little bit, Taylor. So if let's say the election happens next month, Trump is in, what is going to happen then, because he's back in?
Well, first of all, about the election. First of all, we don't know if they're first. There's two possibilities with the election. First, we don't have one because of because of an overt military takeover, which already happened back in January 6th. But it'll be overt this time. Or the second one being that Kamala is allowed to quote unquote win, which Trump has been hinting at many times on True Social. And if this happens, people are going to be like, oh, we're going to be living under 4 years of Kamala. No, this will be done more in like 4 days, because people need to understand there's a difference between being elected and being inaugurated. And as far as Trump is concerned, he's already been the commander in chief these last 4 years to begin with. So the only thing so this will be his third term coming up next year. This will be his third term. It's just overt this time. And the Q plan is an 8-year plan, which started back in 2016. This is the final year of it. And as far as Trump goes, he said day one, he said, I'm going to be a dictator only on day one. So the illegal migrants will be gone. The Ukraine fiasco is going to be taken care of on the first day. The Gaza thing most likely will be taken care of on the first day, but I can't say for certain on that one. I can say for certain the Ukraine one, but not the Gaza one. As far as the coming next year, 2025, we could be here this time next year, and 9/11 truth will be public. Stuff like something like 9/11 truth, because the first 5 things that
Mossad did it. Mossad did it. That'll be out this time next year, do you reckon?
Most likely, yes. Either well,
you heard it here first.
Let me finish. CIA. It wasn't just the Mossad, by the way. CIA, Austria was in it. Saudi Arabia was in it. Oh, by the way, speaking of Saudi Arabia, I'll just mention this. The former king of Saudi Arabia, who was in charge of the child sex trafficking, he was the one that put Obama in. So there you go. But yeah, the first 5 things that'll come out, if you I'm pretty much guaranteeing this. I'm not trying to sound like a prophet. I'm going off of pattern recognition, as you mentioned before. The first 5 things will be 9/11, the Kennedy assassination, COVID, the election fraud of 2020, and the child sex trafficking. Those would be the first 5 things to come out, because they're the most overt and most important things, and everything else will come after, including the central banking hoax, of course, which will also be one of the first. But you can't just start off with that. You know what I'm saying?
You do know that if Trump gets rid of the central banking system, that's what Hitler did. Is that why you like it?
Exactly. Putin did the same exact thing in Russia, and many other Latin and Central America, South America.
So do you see if this is right then? If Putin did that, and all these other countries that you're saying that Trump won't go to war with, that are against Israel right now, do you see how the gathering is now happening? Gog and Magog, the serpent bloodlines. You're going to have China getting involved with Afghanistan and Iran and Russia. Where's America going to be in all that? Are they going to be on that side? Because white hats, black hats, Taylor, they all want the same thing, the control of this one world thing. You've got the Pope doing his bit, trying to unite all the religions. So we're going to get all these nations united, and they're going to go peace and safety. Everybody's safe. And then it's going to kick off.
See, you're looking at it from the point of view of them. You're looking at it from the point of view of them trying to attain the same thing, which is world domination or world quote unquote unity. Which, here's the thing: unity in and of itself can be is a good thing, because we've all been divided on so many levels, whether it be on religion, or politics, or ethnicities, etc. We've all been divided. As Q said, child sex trafficking, child abuse unites everybody. And that's exactly what's happening right now. That's what the South Freedom is for. And to directly address your question about Israel, there's not going to be a war with Israel because Israel has already been defanged. All we're seeing right now is nothing more than theater. Right now, it's making Israel look bad. Q said, we're saving Israel for last. No specific reason given at this time. That's a quote from a Q post. And Israel is being saved for last. Look at it. Now so many people, Israel's been defanged. Freaking nobody is supporting them anymore. And about the whole Biden thing, he's not sending anything to Israel. That's all nothing more than just overt propaganda, because they control the media now too. The White Hats control the media now. Now they aren't going to come out and just say, "Oh, Trump, we love Trump" or anything like that, because that would be too sudden.
I'm not coming from my point of view now. Then, what's the outcome for the world then? If they aren't all after the same thing, which I see that's what they're doing, what will be the outcome?
Israel will be, I already said, Israel. There's two outcomes for Israel being: one, it'll be gone completely, and there won't be an Israel anymore; or two, it'll be a multi-ethnic state with the Palestinians taking up the majority.
You're missing my point. We're talking about a world government, a world religion. What's the difference? Trump.
No. There is no one world government or one world religion anymore. That's dead.
You think that Trump won't be part of a one world system? Is that what you're saying?
No, hell no. He's the one that defanged the one world system. He killed the globalists. And you mentioned the Pope before, by the way. Let me just say this: the Pope has been replaced. The quote unquote Pope, he's been replaced. And something that he said. And if you want proof of the Pope being replaced, look at his recent rhetoric, the things that he's been saying. Like, I'll give you an example.
Hang on. Taylor, you're losing me here, and we're going to go down another rabbit hole, so we can't. But if you're saying that the Pope's now been replaced, that Pope that's been replaced is still saying all religions go to God. They're still trying to reunite all religion under one God, which is going to be forced. And you're saying Trump's not going to do that, or he wants to do that, and he wants to control it. Which is it?
There is no one world government, no one world religion, or anything like that. That's not going to happen. It's all gone. And it's just like I mentioned with the Pope saying these things. You can't just come out and just instantly be pro nationalism or pro Republican, all that. Anti-New World Order. You have to make it a gradual process. Otherwise, people won't believe it. It'll be too much of a shocking experience. It's called boiling the frog. And like I said, no one world government, no one world religion. That's all dead. What we're going forward into the future. We are living in one of the best times in human history.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on it, but what is the Pope going to do then? All religions go to God, but that's not true. So they're play acting on that, are they? They're pretending.
Yes.
So what comes after that? What comes after that? All sovereign nations.
Yes, sovereign nations, southern religions. We'll each have our, we're not going to have a one world religion. The church will no longer be infested with Christian Zionism or LGBT or anything like that. The church will be saved. And best of all, this atheism, freaking Darwinism will finally be gone. Because as is already the case in Russia, they're already having more mandatory moral classes in Russia where they teach you things about orthodox from an orthodox Christian point of view, and the right way to behave, and that's will be a similar thing going on in the rest of the world, including in the West. No longer will religion or Christianity or any other spirituality will no longer be treated as tin pot conspiracy nonsense by the press or the mainstream education establishment. The education system is going to be fixed as well. And same thing with religion. Everything's going to be fixed. We're moving into a new era, away from the New World Order, away from the globalists, the deep state, the Satanists. All of it's going to be gone. It's like how the Third Reich was, how Hitler's Germany was. We're moving into that worldwide now.
That's going to take some time.
That's not going to sound great for a lot of people, though, Taylor, that we're moving into Nazism for the world.
Well, not Nazism, because it's not like we're all going to be under the same political or economic or spiritual system.
Listen, we're going to have to cut it short there, mate, because you're opening too many rabbit holes. What I would say is we're going to see fruits from whatever happens now from November to possibly this time next year. We're going to see a lot of fruit, and we'll see if that fruit's bad, and we'll see if that fruit's good. I am not as certain as you are that these people don't all want the same thing, because I feel that these people all want the same thing, but they will kill each other to get to what they want their version to be. Some people, as you were talking about, let's say in the Black Arts, some people will blow this entire world up to rule on the ashes on their own. This is no different to the Bond villain at the bottom of the volcano.
That's what they were actually planning to do with back with 9/11. That was the point of 9/11, to get World War III going and to have a big nuclear war. They don't give a shit.
Do you know what? I'll disagree with you on that one as well, because it was all about homeland 9/11. It was about changing everything in America, just as our 7/7 changed everything in England. It was about legislative changes, Patriot Acts that were already written. It wasn't just about the World War. The World War that you speak of is what they did afterwards, and said, yeah, those Saudi Arabians did it, so we're going into Iraq. That's what you were looking at there. So we'll leave it till next week, mate. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for your input as always. Sort a date and the time out, and let me know when you want to do the show, and I'll come on it. All right, pal.
Okay, can I say one more thing though, and I'll make it quick.
just one more thing.
Okay, so just this month will be
just the one, Mrs. Wembley.
Yeah, this will be the big month of October. We'll see a lot of scare events. Don't be scared. Get the popcorn out, chew on it, and enjoy the show, because we're watching a movie.
Cheers, pal. I'll see you later. I'll see you next week, son.
Yep.
Okay, pal. Jason, anything last to say, lad?
Well, we've wittered on so long. I never got to ask you about Cliff High, whether you'd watched it or not. Don't let Taylor wind up the show, because he's not quick.
I watched.
I like it.
I watched the first 40 minutes of that idiot's video, and then he started to talk about stuff that I'd researched 10 years ago about all these Bibles and these things that go into Gnosticism. So I've been down that route, so I can't go back down that route, because there's the alternative, there's the absolute opposite of what he's talking about. So I appreciate it. I thought I might have got something new out of it, but after 40 minutes in, I only watched that one video, that idiot's. And when I got 40 minutes in, I just thought, well, the idiot thing is for people who don't know what they're looking at. Because I was an idiot. I didn't know what I was looking at. But I've gone and looked at that stuff, and it doesn't resonate with me, Jason. So I know what changed me, even though I can't prove it and I can't ram it down people's throats. It was interesting to see if it would pull me back somewhere, but it wasn't. It was the same. I can't speak for Alex, because I know Alex was going to view it at some point if he got a chance as well. So
I didn't watch Idiots. I watched some of his other material. So I can't give 100% certain perspective that you're looking for. But from what I saw of his presentation, he's either a crackpot or a genius.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's normally a small line, that, mate.
Yeah.
There's a very fine line between it for us all. Very fine line. Like I said, this stuff, you can't prove some of this stuff, but I can prove that your gas is free. but nobody was interested in that either. So, it gets to that. Thanks for coming on anyway, Jason. I'm sorry you didn't get enough
No worries.
to speak more, but thanks for coming on again, and I appreciate the support, pal.
Cheers, chaps. I'll leave you later.
Cheers, mate.
By the way, Jason, I will check out Idiots in the coming week. I just didn't get a chance to check that.
Just another thing on a side note is, and when I watch your show, if I'm not when I'm not participating and I'm watching your shows, just for anybody out there, because they go on for so long, I watch it at either 1.5 speed or 2 speed, depending on if I can understand it. And that I'd say that to anyone. And I'd also say, if you're watching that Cliff High stuff, like you say, 40 minutes, if you watch it at 1.5 speed and you can still understand it, then I would say that you get through it a hell of a lot quicker doing it that way.
Nice.
Cheers, pal. I'll speak to you next week, Jason.
All right. Cheers, guys. See you later.
Pleasure to meet you. Yeah.
Michael, anything left?
No, I would just like to say, I could talk for days if I wanted to, and I could probably entertain for days, but no, I just appreciate the opportunity to come on and, do whatever I can to sort of help. And my thing is now what we should start to look at is some solutions.
Absolutely. That's where it's at.
Sorry.
That's where it's at, Michael. Yeah.
And I have some ideas. The first thing is to know thy enemy. And believe me, there's plenty of enemies out there that people don't even realize are enemies. And like you say, it is about coming together. We do have to come together. And I think, a lot of it, our military should get involved because we're going to need them. When a lot of it all comes out, a lot of the truth comes out, we're going to need them. They're going to need to do the right thing. But the thing is, I've been with these high rank, and I mean high ranked officers, brigadiers upwards. I've driven them. I've had to protect them, close combat, and they're in a different ballgame. They're in a different world to what we are. There's a big separation, and they do as they're told, and they rule with authority. It's as simple as that. But I believe if we come together, they have to do what the people say, because the power belongs with the people. And if the people rise up, I'm sure there'll be a lot of the ex-military that will stand by them, 100%. And I believe the solutions are there, but we need to figure them out and work with it, because I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I mean, if people aren't awake right now with the amount of crap that is going on, and it's right in front of their eyes, and they're not waking up, I don't know what will. What level does it have to go to? How bad does it have to get before you have to say, no, I'm not taking this no more? A bit like me in my trench. Yeah. I just hope it isn't too late, and that we can bring this country back to what it used to be.
Well, when me and Alex started this up, we said all we can do is blow the trumpets. If people hear the trumpets and they come look, then they can disagree. They cannot disagree with us all they like, Michael. I've had 15 years of people calling me a nutter for telling that the gas were free. And like I tried to explain, technically it's not free, you paid for it. But people don't look at what tax has been taken out of the wages. The majority of people I know anyway, they look at the bank account, they say, oh, that's my wage paid in. Right, out of that wage has got to be my gas, water, electric, council tax, mortgage. And then I've got this to spend. Well, what if those gas, water, electric and council tax weren't there for you to have to spend? That's like £400-500 a month extra. Why would you not want to know that? Because it's not a loophole. It's not getting out of. It's basic bloody commerce. It's balancing.
That's right.
that's the simplicity of it. And like you say, Mick, if they're not seeing it yet, maybe it's going to be too late for a lot of people, because when things start changing, I mentioned Martin Niemöller earlier. Martin Niemöller's statement rings with me a lot. I said nothing when they came for these. I said nothing when they came for them. I said nothing when they came for them. And then they came
Yeah.
for me, and there was nobody left. And that's what we're doing. We're blowing the trumpets. We've just got to see what the crack is. Thanks for coming on, Michael. It's been really
No, no.
interesting having your story, and look forward to speaking again sometime,
But
pal.
don't stop whatever you do. I mean, people are going to need you when they do wake up. They're going to need you more than ever, because they're going to be so lost in their brain. And you've got that experience with your prison service. I think, they are going to need you, and they're going to need your guidance and help. But that's if you're willing to do it. You're that, when you get a stone and you throw it into a pond and it hits and it starts with one ripple and the ripple goes out and grows. That's how I see you guys. So, yeah, but I appreciate you having me on and
Thank
allowing me
you.
to share a story. And yeah, please don't stop. Keep going.
Thank you for the kind words, sir. I'll speak to you next week.
Thank you.
Cheers.
God bless, brother. Bye-bye.
God bless you, boys.
God bless.
Interesting show, mate.
Yeah.
What have you got to say in closing?
Well, I just think, like I said to Michael at one point, what was really striking there was that he was in the military and he's in the battlefield and shells are going off or whatever, the whole thing must have been surreal. And when he just talked then about what does it take to wake a person up, well, in his case, it took him being in the midst of totally contrived insanity in a war that was nothing to do with anything constructive or productive or necessary, totally manufactured. For him to sit there scratching his head, probably on some levels realizing that his mortality, was in the picture. And this fits in with the prominent 1950s theologian Paul Tillich from the US, who said that these existential questions of our present experience, particularly things like our mortality, potential imminent death, these always make us think, ask the key questions. And of course, what's interesting is Michael cried out and he was angry at God. This reminds us a little bit, not the same as Job, but some of the prophets like Habakkuk and others. And I prayed a few times recently when I've been at the end of my tether, thinking, I have no faith, but not in God, in the world as it is, because there is no faith to be found in this world. Jesus said, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Expecting the answer, no. So there is nothing to believe in human terms. The corruption, the greed, the open murder and depravity now of people. I mean, look at what's happening. It's just, we know it's happening, but people seem to have to be in that much crisis before they're prepared to have this reckoning with their own soul. And for us, that's with God. But at least we saw in Michael there, it always starts in the same place. A moment of crisis. I can't believe these things that are happening. There's got to be something wrong with this picture. It isn't down to me to change it. I'm a pawn in a game. Who's really in control? That's the question. Who's really in control? You can control your own life to a degree. That's what we call autonomy. But who really is on the throne? And that's the question I think we need to leave with tonight. Who's on the throne?
Well, we know who's on the throne, mate.
We do, brother. We do.
We do. Thanks for that, mate. I'll speak to you again after we've finished.
Yeah, no worries.
So we come to another mammoth end of a Webster report. A lot of different views, a lot of different takes on things, but it's information at the end of the day. People will always take what information you give. I've noticed that a lot with myself, but we see the state of this world, And again, I started off talking about patterns and what the evil was in this world. Well, when you've got information that you can look at and evidence, and the information has always been accurate, then you tend to have a look at that a little bit more. You look at the prophecies in the scriptures and the ones that have been fulfilled. Are the ones yet to come? Have you read the scriptures? Could you be bothered? Well, if you're not, you're not. But when we look at this world and we see all these religions that are so-called, so many fanatics that are involved in these man-made religions, and they believe things that just aren't written in those scriptures. And every church that I've been to, certainly, doesn't preach that, doesn't preach what's in that Bible. There's always a variation. And if you aren't going to preach what it says, then you can't say that you are a certain thing. So if somebody says to me, if I said to somebody I'm a Christian, normally I'm saying, are you Catholic or are you Protestant? I'm neither. I'm neither of them, because I went to the Bible and I read the Bible, and those words changed me. No establishment, no priest, no vicar. Those words changed me. So as a Christian, I say I follow Christ. I follow those words. It's the only thing that's changed anything in my life. Changed this, which I didn't think I'd ever be able to change. I wouldn't even notice I needed to change. That's how deep this path has been for me in this walk. It's not something to be flippant about, where you can be flippant about everything. Again, I recognise patterns. Who's mocked? Who is, but everybody puts to one side. Netflix make a TV show about Jesus being a gay teenager and taking his boyfriend home to meet Mary. You don't see that with Muhammad. You don't see that with Buddha. It's always Christ. It's always Christianity. It's not the Catholics can do what they want. They love it, because the Catholics, for me, are not Christians. If you worship Mary to get to God, then that's not Christian for me, because I was taught there's only one way to God, and you pray to God in the name of Jesus. Nothing else. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with that because it's not lied to me yet all these other things have. And it's about, we were talking about asking questions as well. Ask questions to yourself. Do you really know everything? Everything you've ever been taught is true? Do you really believe that? Because if you do, I'd love you to come on the show and tell us how it's all true. How that everybody pays for the bills, because everybody does. Well, I know that, but it's not the right thing to do as a creditor in a debt-based economy. Debtors pay in a debt-based economy. So that means we are being treated as debtors because we're acting as debtors. So if we've been taught that, what else have you been taught that makes you not you? Because you've never thought for yourself. And it breaks things down. It's not easy stuff, this. But thanks for putting up with us, and thanks for listening, and God willing, we'll see you next week.
Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free, in a debt-based economy. Here's the Webster Report with Paul the Gasman Webster.